When it's ready.
How do I say?
Preparing to
What will
live
happen?
stream.
So what
meeting.
it'll do is it'll go up to the top.
It gets us before it says ready.
Oh, it's happening. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Today is April 11th, 2024, and this is our first meeting with the new equipment. So hopefully everybody can see us. This is a hybrid meeting, but we're not taking public comment today, so it's really just gonna be a video. This open meeting of the Northborough Design Review Committee is being conducted in person and remotely, consistent with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. All members of the Design Review Committee are allowed to participate either in person or remotely. This act allows the Northborough Design Review Committee to meet in person and remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded, so the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of the recording of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. Good morning, everybody. So I don't know if I probably don't have to take attendance. At the select board meeting, did you take attendance?
We didn't take attendance, but we did an ice
Well, only when, who was it? So somebody was attending remotely.
Yeah, so I don't think.
Well, that's true, so Dave's not attending remote.
What is it? What about the participant? That
There's only
There is a
one.
participant.
That's us.
You're a participant?
I think so.
Oh, yeah, there is a one, so it's not us. See down there, see where the green share screen arrow is? Take to the left, one to the left, now touch that.
Yeah, that's just us.
Oh, it is us.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry.
Because it always says that before the meeting starts. when I'm on.
Okay, so the first thing on the agenda, it's now 8:37. First thing on the agenda is continued review of the scorecard rubric. And I want to thank you, Mark, for working on that. And Lori too, and
Lori
we'll
did
have
all
to.
most of the work.
Yes, Lori and Mark
just
for
reviewing
working it. So now we want to review and come together as a group with what we're going forward with. And I don't know who wants to speak to it first.
Well, I
Mark?
can start us off just because, this is a continuation from last meeting where we went through, I forget, there was like 53 items and Laurie had gone through and I forget the terminology she used, but reworded it so that it sounded appropriate for a checklist or a rubric score. So it's just taking the existing guidelines, which previously I had cut and pasted those, verbatim in the same order they appeared. We had gone through a few, combined a few and stuff like that. Last meeting that Laurie was not here for, we basically approved the changes she had made to everything and they're well done. There were a couple items where minor word changes were not in complete agreement with everybody, and I didn't think it was right to just approve them without Laurie present to state her case on it. So this is the last chance. There's 11 items. Most are actually, there's 11 items. 2 of them she's already given the okay for, or 3 actually, via email. And a couple were added by the group that we wanted to see put in there. We split a couple into 2. So it's Laurie's chance to have a discussion on that. So do we want to do the controversial one first, which I have listed first, or?
Sure.
All right, this is,
And it
oh,
should,
no, it's fine.
I would say it shouldn't be
Yeah,
controversial.
No, this one's not. I moved it to the end. Okay, so this is just a minor change in the historical section of the guidelines. where we wanted to take the original statement is the architectural character of a new building should respect the character of adjacent existing historical buildings. And we wanted to broaden that slightly to say historical buildings in the neighborhood or nearby. We didn't quite know what the wording should have been, but we didn't want to be just adjacent. So.
I wonder, so one of the questions that I had from Mark after I had read this one is, particularly in the downtown area, there are a number of historic buildings. And they don't necessarily have the same character, so they may be very different in character. So I wonder if it would be helpful to specify historic buildings that have a, like, they're visible from the project instead of, you know, 2 blocks away or 1 block away, but it has no sort of visual relationship to the new building.
Should we separate it to a downtown versus other, like, when it comes to,
Yeah, I think that would be helpful too, because when you get into the other business districts, there may not be any historic buildings
Right.
that have a visual. So another possibility is to just, so if you look in this one, what I had done is I had taken from the zoning bylaw
do we have an extra one?
and the design guidelines. And in the zoning bylaw, it specifies certain districts where these are requirements. And other districts, they're not requirements. So that's also a possibility, is to just say, you know, this is only applicable in, say, downtown neighborhood, maybe the Main Street residential and the downtown business districts. Because really, those are the only districts that have a large number of historic buildings.
Yeah,
The rest of the downtown area, you can't really even think of historic buildings and,
Yeah, if they're
Business
they're old
east.
farmhouses or something.
so,
yeah, they're not commercial in character.
so on these guidelines though, how do we have, is this only for business districts? Is that what this one is all about?
So what I did is I took the zoning bylaw, so if you look in development regulations. There are some guidelines that or standards that apply to all business districts except highway business.
Okay.
And then there are some that apply to just like downtown neighborhoods, some that only apply to downtown business. So of course, these are zoning bylaws, so in order to change these, you have to go to town meeting, it has to be a warrant article. But in the design guideline document, it could just specify that this is a recommendation for downtown business only.
Yeah.
Or,
Okay.
you know,
That's what I
just,
think.
And then make a couple or make a later on, because I'm sure that as we expand, you know, because I'm thinking downtown district, nobody ever really knows where it starts and ends. Is it supposed to be Stone's Motorcycle Shop starts the east and ends at?
it's actually defined in the zoning map.
It's more of like from the library to Coleman House.
So,
Oh,
Doesn't
wow,
it go
it's
down
even
to
more
130
That's
now?
Main Street residential.
Well, because, well, I know when they built 130, the previous owners said it was commercial and they couldn't.
It is commercial, but like we have business,
That's a different,
downtown
that's
business,
the,
and then
Okay,
business
okay.
east and business west.
yeah, okay,
yeah, so it is parcel based. So you can actually go on to the parcel based GIS map and you can see which parcels are in which specific district. So I just found that zoning map yesterday. It's an updated one. So the blue area, the orange area to the north, so in the center of town,
Mhm.
and the MSR is that gold area adjacent. So
yeah,
the MSR is pretty much on Route 20. And that goes, gosh, it's hard to,
And that's Main Street residential, that's
That
where these
yellow-
older houses are.
Yeah, when
It's that's, they should be
more
historic,
historic.
yeah.
So, yeah, so I think that, you know, if that starts to get developed, obviously, you know, when you start taking those houses down.
Well, hopefully they wanna save them.
Yeah,
Like, our old bylaws for duplexes had a footnote that they can only be conversions.
but it didn't
And-
change.
Yeah, it got taken out, but it's a long story. I don't wanna get into it now, but I can.
Right.
But we should still have by conversion only, I think, in Main Street residential, because those houses are gonna end up coming down. They are nice.
Well, and the fact is we're not gonna be here, right? When the next group of people come in, we wanna be able to give them a guideline to thought process. So we have to kind of think a little bit further, so maybe we put, you know, design standard of business, whatever on this thing, and then the next one could get modified a little bit by just doing a couple of changes. Once it's there, like then you do the downtown residential, because it's right there, it's not like it's that, this part's hard, is the 20, it's hard because there are the 3. And people can't, you know, maybe we should put like a little sign up, this starts
Welcome to
business
downtown
thing, yeah, welcome
Northborough.
to downtown Northborough.
Well, you see historic district signs in towns.
Yeah, so we could
Yeah.
actually do that.
And the tricky thing is, when we did the downtown revitalization, we actually included Main Street residential.
Yeah.
Main Street residential should probably be an overlay, because downtown really kind of does go to the river there, at least.
Up to the nose.
Yes, but it's really Main Street residential, if you look at the zoning.
Yeah,
But what people, even when we did downtown revitalization, we included all the way to Stone's Motorcycle Shop.
okay, because that, I mean, you've got also those lovely buildings too, so it stops at the library and then you miss the,
Right,
you know, that yellow house and the parking space and you know.
my favorite, making the big copy, I guess.
so how should we do it for today, like, we're on the first one, Mark, and
Okay, yeah, no, I mean,
Lori, what do we're changing the wording?
Yeah, I mean, so of course, if there's a change to the design guidelines itself, so probably that's where it should go into, then you know, typically there's a public hearing and planning board input and ZBA input.
Well,
and
that's not
then
really.
adoption.
yeah.
We have we've had when we did the 2-family bylaws, it just went in front of the planning board.
Right,
It didn't have all this public hearing, I mean, we could, but when they've done design review guidelines in the past, it's like we report to the planning board, and actually we do to the ZBA too, but the planning board is plan review. So in the past, changes made are brought forward after we decide.
Yeah.
Then we bring it, I can bring it forward as the planning board rep to the planning board. I don't think we've
and then
ever,
it becomes, and then they officially vote to adopt it, so.
And this is just one minor one, I think
yeah.
we're
we can
gonna
still
have
bring it
things
forward.
that do have to go through that process, and we might as well.
Oh,
just
yeah.
do 10 of them at once.
Yeah.
Because most of
Yeah.
these are minor wording, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah, so when we were talking about the sign guidelines and the awning, and, I mean, if there are any modifications, I would think that it would just be modifications to the entire document.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the checklist would be,
Match that,
Part-
yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
would
and we
match
should
the
link
document.
two. I mean, we already kind of linked the guidelines to the bylaws. So we also have to link the checklist. I mean, they follow the same order, but the link isn't clearly fine.
Okay,
so are you guys okay with the language I suggested about that have a visual
Yeah, visual still in there.
relationship to the
so is it gonna be the
subject
architecture?
building?
are we on the first one?
Yep,
So tiny, I'm like,
I
oh
know,
my god, I can
this is
feel
my big
it.
version too.
Oh, yeah,
The architectural character of the new building respects the character of existing historical buildings in the neighborhood that have a visual relationship to the subject property or something
so
like
that
that.
sounds like a lot.
Yeah, but you're going for a check mark on this, so it's.
Oh, I know, but I just don't want it, I just want people to realize what it is, like,
I guess my point is, you know, are they gonna be expected to So say that they're doing a new building and the nearest historic building is 2 blocks away. Are they going to be expected to conform to the character of a historic building 2 blocks away?
Especially when it conflicts with a different one 2 blocks in the other direction.
Right, so really it's if it's visually, you know, if it's across the street, if it's 2 doors down, if it's, you know, if you can see the historic building from the subject property, that's the one that you should blend with. Don't worry about the one that's 2 blocks away that, you know, nobody's gonna see relative to the new structure.
My only thing is when they talk about the fire station, they are saying, oh, we want it to look like town hall, so I don't want to say, well, you can't look at town hall because we can't see it from there.
Well, yeah, but that
I
could
think
be
you
under
can, though.
municipal.
Yeah.
You can see it from,
Okay, I just don't want something like that to happen too, and they like the metal punch out, because they talked about how it related to the library. So I liked how it all related, I just wouldn't want this to be so strict that someone in the future goes, well, you know, you can't pull in the library and the fire station because we can't see it from here. Like, I'd want it to be in the district, you know, like, not forcing them, it just says respect.
Can we just say nearby instead of adjacent? I mean,
What about in the same district, like here in downtown, it has to.
see, I'm thinking the opposite, like, I'm thinking if I'm an architect and, you know, I've got maybe the library next door, so I'm taking my architectural cues from the library. And then somebody on this committee is saying, hey, you know, you're supposed to take the library, you're supposed to take the town hall, you're supposed to take, you know, a variety, like different. And then, you know, the guidance isn't clear, I guess is my point. So by saying that it's most important to take the cues from the buildings that have a visual relationship to the property, then you know, yeah, you're taking your cues from the library, and design review knows they're taking the cues from the library.
I like the visual, could you add, because you're taking away adjacent, right, the one that's right next door. So could you add it like an and/or type of thing, like the four properties around it? Isn't that how it started, was the properties around it, they were supposed to kind of mirror?
I think it says adjacent. So I think you guys wanted to get rid of adjacent.
we just make it a budding and then that carries one more building.
Yeah, because well, all around, you know.
I like in the neighborhood or in the district, because what if you're next to Hillside Grill and you don't wanna look like Hillside Grill, you'd rather look like the
Right.
library.
Well, technically, this is a
That's
historic
true.
building. I wouldn't want anybody to build something that looked like this. I mean, it's historic architecturally, but not aesthetically.
Yeah,
I just don't wanna have the architects be pinholed to like, I want them to have,
Yeah,
we would
I mean,
be
I think-
creative if they
I
wanna be
think we're
creative.
trying to be flexible, right? I mean,
That's what I
easier for
want.
everybody.
Yeah,
because the hard thing with visual is you really want to make a sketch that you could see, like, okay, I can see that building over there, I like that building. Do you know what I mean? That could be even more of a hornet's nest because of what the architect's looking for architecture, what he likes, and well, that makes sense to me, so I like that over there, when it could be 5 properties away, 6 properties away. But I think it reflects too on what you want these spaces to ultimately look like. Like, what's the conformity that you're looking for? You want them to, you know, in so many blocks in downtown, not anywhere else, because we're talking about downtown. Do you want them to start to look more uniform, so that helps the overall vision? Because right now, we don't have any 2 buildings that go in line. Well, that's not true.
You probably shouldn't have any 2 buildings that go on the line.
Right?
Well,
Yeah.
Well, if you want-
Hillside
well, that's what I'm
Compliment each other.
saying, that's what I'm saying, but if you wanted to look like downtown Hudson, well, that was old because they built that all that way. But for you to get the feel of that, and you want to have that conformity, so you can have those signs that you like, and you can have that look that you keep bringing in, you gotta have some sort of a, path that kind of conforms. But if you have, such the Mod Podge we have now, how do you bring it in? How do you make it so that it's like, okay, the next guy who buys, say, he buys the Sunoco station. Do you want him to make it look like Pierce's Plaza? Or do you want to actually make it look like WCD? Because WCD's got all the moldings and stuff like that. They did, I don't know if they were built at a certain time when the bylaws said this is how we wanted it. But clearly that doesn't look like an automotive shop, much like 325 that used to be next to Tredevi,
329.
229, and how they built that building. That's an attractive building.
They renovated
Gray.
Yeah, they renovated.
Yeah, and it looks.
That's like a crucified.
They renovated it. And are they still there?
The
company? No, the company that
companies?
did the
Yeah, and the
kitchens.
building is fully open and fully renovated and fully rented.
Yeah, so,
And I hear zero squawks about it.
right, so, but it's visually it's attractive. You drive by and it's visually attractive.
It wasn't a good looking before they renovated it.
No. But here we have a good example. It's a nice looking building. Again, it looks like the WC building because of its, similarities.
So how do you have that fitting in here?
I don't know. That's why I'm bringing that up. That's what I'm
How about
throwing it out there.
well, he wrote in the neighborhood, in the vicinity. I'm just concerned if it's visually, like, what if you can't see the library and you want something that looks nice?
I don't think that they'd be, for me, it's about setting expectations. So that they know from the get-go when they're doing the initial design, what they should be looking at. And I think it's confusing. What if they took their cue from the library, but you want them to take their cue from a building 2 blocks away?
But I don't
You
think
know?
that's our job. Like I don't think if they take their cue from the library, we can say, no, we want it to look like Cumberland
Okay,
Farms.
well, as long as you folks,
Yeah, I mean,
feel that way. I'm just thinking about the whole conversation about the ice cream.
Me too.
But
restaurant.
Dario gave all the
Yeah, me too.
areas.
Because what was
around it.
picked out of that was Crockett, automotive, the stuff that they picked wasn't something we wanted to see again. Like that 50s, 60s vision.
Right,
And that's what they wanted to create because they like that style. So,
I guess I'm trying to get you folks to be clear so
Yes,
that
yes.
doesn't happen again.
yes,
Because, when we get onto the conversation about traditional architecture, traditional what?
Well, I think it's-
Traditional, like a ranch is traditional, those were popular in the 1960s. Split levels are traditional, those are popular in the 70s,
Yep,
50
yep.
years old, so technically they're traditional, they're
Right.
historic. So, I think that you folks have era in your mind, but it's not stated. So, with the ice cream, he was going after diners, so that's like 1950s style.
right,
You folks didn't like that.
right.
So
Well,
the
but
guidelines currently are not clear.
right, and I do think we have to clarify them, and the problem is that we use the word New England, and it was, well, what does New England mean? And yet, I see New England coffee, and I see New England, everything New England, people kind of know the steeple, the pitched roof, that sort of thing. The people know when you say New England, what New England means, but-
People know.
but
No.
this,
Did you,
You have to
just
take
happened.
it-
did you guys
time
forward
frame.
on my guide?
During the
on that?
history of our
The
time.
2-page guide that defines.
She must have it in her email.
I didn't send it to her, because I'm not allowed to
New
send it to you
England
guys.
statute, Plymouth.
Oh, I didn't print it out.
Exactly,
Does Michelle have it?
like some people think New England
Don't
is
even
Cape
know
Cod,
if I sent it to
I mean,
Michelle.
that's the style house that
I
was
don't know if my
made
computer
famous
will
by Massachusetts.
Some people think
So-
New England is Boston City Hall.
Well, let's say the
Yeah.
guidebook usually says you lock into the town's golden era. So we don't even have that defined, so
I don't know. what
I
the
would
town's
guess it
golden
between
area is.
1880 and 1910. Cause that's when all the nice buildings were built,
Yeah.
but I don't know.
That's true. I mean, that's the point is that, again, it gets back to what flavor do you want your town to look like? And that's the bigger question. And I suppose that would be, I mean, although they went through that with, and you were all here before my time with master plan. The master plan was pretty specific in what the town wanted. And at that time, there wasn't.
Architecturally, I don't think it was at all. I went through that whole document and I didn't find any language whatsoever about the architecture of buildings in the master plan.
It's my problem.
So,
I don't know.
I mean, Amy, you had sent that other community.
Medway, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that they did a really good job of defining.
Yeah.
And if you want to keep the New England in, I think we also have to do
The definition
the
of
same
what,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
put a
You have to
definition.
define what error you're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, it's important to recognize that there is a different character for each of the business districts, so. You know, if you're talking about business south, which is mostly industrial buildings. It probably doesn't make sense to say that the buildings have to look like a, 1900s Victorian.
Yeah, and basically, we're not asking that, but for the buildings that I see in my head when I drive by, the dentist that's on Southwest Cutoff, right? When he did that over, that blue, that peach, the whole thing.
That was across from the used car lot,
Yes,
that was a brand new building from the ground up.
yes,
Yeah.
but his design,
Yeah.
right, matches the design a bit of the one that we just said that was redone on 325.
The 29.
329. It also matches the woman who has bought Lowe's and extended Lowe's.
Yes.
Pitched roof is.
Pitched roof with
is
the
one thing
moldings.
for
It matches
doing with architecture.
WCD. To me, that's what, we've got more of that, even the woman that does the skin.
Well, even the dental shop on, it used to be the old optometrist's office. It was
a cape.
And then it was a cape.
Yeah, it's
I
beautiful.
mean, generally, if you've got a wood frame building,
Yeah,
you're gonna see some sort of a hip or a gable.
Right.
Okay.
right,
If you get some sort of brick and masonry construction, it's probably gonna be a parapet, flat front,
right,
that goes right up to the street.
Right.
That's,
yeah,
and the thing is with Hudson and like Portsmouth, New Hampshire and stuff like that, the whole street was built, basically at the same time.
yeah,
Okay, so it all matches, okay, which that's its character. I don't think we'll ever get that here, because the buildings are not connected and they get space between them, so each building has its own opportunity to have its own unique character,
correct.
Which is
okay?
nice.
Which
Well,
I think is a good thing,
As
because
long as
you're never
you
gonna have a homogeneous front
Right.
in this town. It's just not gonna happen, and, then you also get into building codes, you put buildings side by side right up smack against each other. And I get serious building problems.
Yeah.
Well, we're actually starting to do something like that, though, when you're right on the line, I mean.
No, I'm talking when it's like
Yeah,
right at the line,
Yeah.
when we're literally touching each other or within 5 feet of each other,
yeah,
both buildings have to be sprinkled.
well, it's not a bad idea.
Yeah, there's another $1 million in construction
Well,
costs.
I know,
So I think
but
though, with
let's-
our design review guidelines, we can add in what we want for New England architecture, and there are a lot of good pictures too.
Yeah, and that's one thing, that's a feel. To me, when I look at that, that's kind of uniformity, that's kind of what I think of New England. When I go to Arizona, you don't see these buildings unless there's a little section that's a Victorian section, but not that these are Victorian. I mean, they did a great job with that cape. So there's 2 capes that were originally homes that they moved, that was a children's dentist, and it was an ice cream place. And with the pergolas and stuff like that. It really looks and feels like and that's a personal thing. I mean, it's something that if you need to go out and ask people what they wanted to do, it makes the town, because there's a lot of people who don't want to get bigger, who came here just to raise their kids, and unfortunately, many of them are leaving as soon as their kids are out of high school. They just go. So, but the feeling of the town with the walkability and the trails and all the other things, I'd love to see a waterway that they could do water sports and things like that. that's what we could hold on to. You know, Concord holds on to beautiful big mansions and they've got that waterway behind them and they've got two different areas of downtown that they, you know, have great shops and everything in. People go there because there's the, you know, the functions that happen.
All right,
I sent the architectural guide for New England, didn't go to you guys because it linked to an unsecured website, so I'm gonna have to print that, scan it
Okay.
as an individual PDF and send it to you.
All right, but that's kind of what I'm thinking, and I may be, you know, one person, but that to me is what I think of when I think of saying it's a New England look. Yep, there was a lot of stuff done in New England and the
Yeah.
flat roofs and.
I can summarize what the thing said. It
Okay.
started with the different architectural periods going back to the early settlers. Colonial was the first one, Garrison Colonials with the old bang. Then it went into, you went to the Federalist, Greek Revival, Gothic Revival. There was another one in there, but the big one was the Colonial Revival, which is kind of what New England look is, where it combines elements of all of those things, so many of the previous buildings. And that went up till 1950, when the ranches and the raised ranches and stuff like that, split entries took over.
Right.
So it ended in 1950. But I'll find that guy and I'll send it to everybody, or send it to you guys to send to
All right.
everybody.
Because I mean, you get the classic Cape, right, go down the Cape, everything was classic.
Yeah,
Then you get into the, you know, the 50s with the ranches,
Yeah.
all modern.
yeah,
we have to keep going now.
Okay,
yeah, we're still on number one, right?
Yes.
Of the.
Because we get
easy
it, but we have to, it's already 9:05.
called design review?
I know, but we have to
Yeah.
get through
Well,
the
we've
checklist.
covered a lot of the controversial
Yeah,
ones too, so.
Yeah.
So, all right, you guys take.
All right, so
I'll be
let's,
quiet.
No, it's good, I just have to keep moving too.
so we can summarize on that one, that it's downtown district and,
Downtown neighborhood and Main Street residential.
okay.
So how are we changing the wording? That's where we left off.
Yeah, I don't know.
Can we just say
Right.
nearby?
I would add of between character of existing historical buildings in the neighborhood,
In the neighborhood or
or
vicinity,
whatever you guys want.
neighborhood,
Yeah, put
vicinity.
neighborhood.
Neighborhood is defined somewhere.
Yeah.
It's like what, less than a quarter mile, something like that.
All right, so
Or next crossroads.
if we put neighborhood, then we can put a definition for what we want the neighborhood to be,
Right.
right? So then you can, okay, refer back to this word.
Okay.
It's ultimately not that important anyway.
Yeah.
And this is only a guideline, right? This one, it's not a mandatory.
Right,
All right, where are we now?
yeah.
For the second?
Second one, landscaping, and this one was just a simple, landscaping should not obscure building facade. And just adding, should enhance the building facade without obscuring it.
I like that.
Oh, did you suggest it?
I did?
Yes.
I don't even remember suggesting it. Oh,
It's good that you like
I like it so much, even in partial.
I'd say I have no objection to it, and Laurie wasn't
It
here.
was probably my only thing I did add, and then there was only two things. Yeah. Just one. That's funny. Uh-oh.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
So we'll just lock that one in. I mean, it's implied anyway, but.
So the next one, the shutter.
Oh, okay, the next two actually, we agreed to at the last meeting, and then Laurie agreed to via email, so we can just kind of.
Yeah, I was curious though, so of course, most buildings nowadays have vinyl siding and then they have vinyl shutters. So would that be a problem?
Not as long as they look like they would work if they were real.
Okay,
So
it's
like
not
if they're the same
important
length of the
anymore.
window versus like one of the banks, they go all the way down to the ground and kind of look odd. And I think that's what the original intent was for these, is that they, you know, get rid of things that look really fake.
Okay,
So we're just tweaking it a bit, because you can have fake shutters as long as they look real, I think.
yeah,
Well, and, you know, either sides, I mean, I actually saw a house that had two skinny shutters on either side of the garage doors.
Yeah.
That was just like.
yeah, that's.
Yes, and I guess that was, Reading the original one, it sounded like it was somebody's pet peeve, and it's like, yeah, well, it's a good pet peeve, but a little restrictive.
Yeah, and I mean, we don't have a lot of houses with that, but again, that style would maybe have it on the second floor or something. Can we also put that they have to fix them because there's a couple hanging on a few.
Yeah, so I use shutters on my second floor to balance it because I have picture windows down below and single windows up above, so putting shutters kind of makes everything look the same, because I never put it back on, but. Okay, lighting is the next one. This
What
is,
about the colors? Did anyone have a question on that?
oh, yeah, because actually I added the part in here for discussion using a 12-segment color wheel on traditional color schemes.
I don't know if I
Which
have one.
I don't think that needs to stay in there, that was just for our discussion, so.
Oh, okay, so take out what's in parentheses, because I was thinking about that, I don't have a 12-segment color.
Well, that's it's the
Yeah.
standard color.
Yeah, put an asterisk
Okay.
on there, put that down someplace.
Well, I
the
think
standard
we
color.
can put a reference somewhere.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
do have,
If you guys wanna leave it, that's fine too.
No, I like taking it, but I do like the asterisk and referencing, because you know it,
well, I didn't,
you know what I mean? You have to be a
doing
designer.
color matching, I had no idea there were, you can do every second color and, 4 colors and triads and, yeah, I had no idea what, and there's no way I'm gonna capture that.
You know,
So,
and it doesn't.
But
take
yeah,
into
this is mainly
consideration
this was mainly to like, trying to, make people do exact matches versus,
You don't want people to have to, yeah, because he was thinking back to the Whitney Street
yeah.
one where we had the big discussion that they couldn't match the color and, but he
Well, it
thought,
was-
we should be able to allow it if it's
If it's the
designer
same
building,
building,
it's fine.
Yeah,
the same owner.
yeah, but it was, trying to match fading color or discontinued colors.
Yeah, that's crazy. I don't
All right, the next one's for Bob, and hopefully it's quick and easy.
Material.
Well, no, this is about light posts where it's, the existing says that the concrete base of the light post should be near flush to the ground. And I know the building code added 6 inches above the grade for my deck.
Only if you have structural, non-rot resistant materials.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
because
feel like
the
a-
fire station is proposing 2-inch reveal
Okay,
on their area lines.
Yeah, but the thing is that, if it's non-structural and if it's, not wood based, if it's concrete.
Yeah.
You go the size they want, like if you're doing a deck.
Yeah.
You're required to have 6 inches between soil and your wooden product.
Yeah.
Same thing when you're building a new house, around the perimeter of the house, you need to have minimum 6 inches between grade and the first part that's biodegradable, so to speak. For light posts, it's your call.
okay,
Sometimes.
we can take that out.
And does it matter with metal? It's only matters.
Well,
if it's
No, because the steel that goes in is usually galvanized, like triple super duper galvanized.
And all the electrical goes to the electrical
Yeah.
code, so.
Yeah, and not for nothing, some places, I think they have it at, National Grid with the solar canopies.
Yeah,
I think I could be wrong, but I think what they did, some parking lots do this as a protective bollard for the light posts. Instead of the concrete being flush with the surface or a couple inches above, they come up about 3 feet.
Mm.
So if a car hits it, it's gonna hit the concrete post and not the pole.
Yeah.
Thereby saving the pole. So you just kind of have to be open to that sort of thing.
yeah, because actually that style of the ballards coming out like this,
Yeah.
right? And then going in, there's the lamp post.
Yeah.
Because I had this experience in my back and I'm backing up.
Yeah.
And all I can see is the post,
Yeah.
right, going this way?
Yeah.
Right into the cement.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah, but.
So,
because
You
But I
visually.
think-
didn't put it on the post.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I think, yeah, but I wouldn't have anyway, I wouldn't hit the
Not parking lot lighting, because that is a standard thing where they have the concrete up high.
Yeah.
Right, especially with plows, when they're.
Yeah.
But that's parking lots, right? If you did downtown, if you did a light downtown, you wouldn't want 3 feet.
Downtown
of
accent
street.
lighting, I mean, it's, most places go just above grade anyway.
Yeah.
Right,
Well, that's why I would just specify, differentiate, that this is for landscape lighting.
Yeah,
right,
It's not for parking lot lighting.
Right.
good, yeah,
Right,
that's.
yeah, okay, so we could throw a note in there.
That's great.
And are we keeping with the red or the yellow?
So they're almost the same, except we get rid of the 6 inches Yeah, we keep the red and add except parking lots
Okay.
and parking areas, not lots.
Or what-
Paved areas,
Whatever Gloria
yeah,
said,
paved
too.
areas, I think. would be good.
Yeah.
While we're talking clearances, this may or may not be the right time to do it. But anytime you have a wood frame structure, whether it's sprinkled or not. A commercial wood frame structure, the first 18 inches away from the foundation has to be of non-combustible materials. Think mulch fires, that sort of thing.
Uh-huh.
So, whenever they're doing landscaping, if it's a combustible building, the first 18 inches needs to be some sort of stone or something.
Right.
It can't be wood chips, it can't be anything that would burn, like shrubs or grass or anything.
Right.
So this is for a commercial?
No,
Yeah.
but just commercial, not home.
Just commercial, not, it's discouraged in houses, single family homes. But there's no real enforcement for that,
Yeah,
but for commercial, it's actually in the code.
So 18
That
inches,
came
you
up at the
said?
last
18
planning
inches.
board meeting.
Yeah.
Because switching from mulch was approved by this group, and then
Yeah.
Bob noticed it and switched to stone. And
but yeah, okay, so around the building, like, because that was a big discussion for years ago when Michelle was here. That when you did 7 Monument Place
Mhm.
and maybe even Hillside, that they wanted to get away from mulch and put rock.
Yeah.
And yet the rock that was put in was bigger than.
Yeah.
I mean, when I think of decorative rock, it's like this size, right? Not this size.
Get them in all shapes and colors
So-
these days.
That's the thing, you have to, and again, that's how it looks, because
But if it's only 18 inches, you
that's
can
not
have
18
them.
inches, that's almost 2 feet.
Oh, I know,
The
but if
same
they
as,
only have to do
no-
18 inches.
No shrubs within the 18
Yeah,
inches.
you can
No
still do
burn.
shrubs and
Right.
gardens.
so the
18
fire
inches
control
out.
gets
Right,
close to the
right.
building,
Yeah.
and it happens all the time in commercial buildings, people flick their cigarettes as they're walking the building, and sets the mulch on fire.
We have
So
to
like
do
the
that.
buildings you're talking about, design review could have said, okay, 18 inches of stone, but then
Right.
mulch and
Yeah, but
plants.
then beyond the 18
Yeah.
inches, whatever you want to
right,
do.
right,
Where those buildings, they just did.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
that was the new look.
We actually had a house fire in town.
Yeah.
On,
That's in the street where it curves.
not,
Near
Oh, really?
treetop? The one near treetop?
no, it's right off of Main Street, it's, not Monument, what's the next one after Monument?
Oh,
Aspen.
where those condos are.
Yeah, go up beyond,
Cedar Hill.
Fernbrook.
Oh,
Is that Fernbrook?
Wow.
Which is further down, across from Lincoln, right?
I don't know.
I don't know.
In that area.
Anyway, the guy had a bunch of mulch,
Yeah,
okay, and it caught fire because it wasn't dry, it was damp, wet. Spontaneous combustion,
wow.
went up underneath the vinyl siding, and the original siding was that Cape Cod shingle, it's dry,
Brittle.
brittle, and crumbly, it's like tinder, they lost the house.
Wow.
Wow.
This is good to know that.
Maybe I'll buy
Yeah,
stone
let's say
instead
I've
of
been-
old.
I've been in factories.
Be
that had
easier.
I have to
to
buy 5
catch on
yards,
fire
so.
because
Some
of the mulch.
cigarette,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, and the mulch is really, again, like you're saying with the building, you have to have enough cement up here because the black mulch it does bring bugs. It's not a good idea to use it because it comes with a whole bunch of junk in it. Well, we seem to see it in a lot of places.
Do we wanna add that as one of the guidelines somewhere? I mean,
Yeah, it should
I mean,
be
we-
landscaping.
yeah.
Well,
plans.
it's, I mean, it's in the code, the building code, but
yeah,
it's good to have it
It's good
so
to
that
have.
your
I think it's,
designers
yeah, I think it's good.
would be aware of it.
Yeah.
I mean, most designers are, but some maybe miss it.
but no, it's like, yeah, Maple.
Yeah, so we'll add that.
We should have, I like that.
Yeah, I don't know if you have a separate section somewhere for something.
I just don't wanna add the 18 inches of stone and think that there'll be no plantings.
Right,
Like,
right.
we'll have to follow by,
18 inches of non-combustible material.
oh, what else is non-combustible?
Shrubs, it's
Shrubs are combustible, leaves, grass are combustible. So stone, concrete, decorative pavers,
The old days, they used to,
sometimes it's cobblestone,
yeah,
a river stone, something like that, or white marble, or, there's a whole myriad of stone.
yeah. I think,
There's a lot of benefits to it.
back to the old, I mean, the old way used to be what is it, the aprons? The cement aprons that take the water and get it away,
Yeah,
which I would love
yeah,
that.
they cut some for the runoff too.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the problem, you don't think about it when you're building, well, designers aren't even thinking about it either, but it's raining, and it's going this way. And the guy's digging the hole isn't caring, he's just digging the hole.
Yeah.
Okay,
Alright,
Did we get past the page?
no, this is a tough one.
is it?
Is it?
Where are we now?
The New England.
Yes.
I don't think
Well,
that's.
I object to the term vernacular. Can't spell it.
That's the design.
I went to add it back, it's like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would like to do, I would put New England with an asterisk and we can go down to what we would picture New England being.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that could be like an action item to do a guideline on
Define,
that.
yeah.
On what that is, and I wish that article had, or that, because it was a 2-page card document that did a really good job, and the building samples they used look exactly like buildings that we have downtown, so you could use the Gale Junior's house for one, and Gale Senior's house for, so,
Yeah.
you know, and,
Okay.
you know, so.
But if you're
But-
doing commercial, you can still like CVS, has the pitched roof, and,
But that's colonial revival,
yeah.
so.
And you know, I think our community development guide says colonial revival, not that I wanna add that in there, but it's interesting that you bring that up. But I think we leave it in, even our vision for our master plan says Northborough, New England town, you know, like.
Yeah, I think it's on the
Don't
front
think
page.
it's too squishy.
So I don't-
Unless you wanna add a page defining,
I think we have to, we
Yeah.
have to.
Yeah.
so.
I mean, we can leave this.
I don't wanna take it out because like every survey from master plans are like, we wanna be the small New England town, people don't wanna urbanize and.
I also suggest removing the landscaping features because we have an entire section on landscaping where it's already talking about. And you know, there's a ton of design standards having to do with landscaping, so it's talking about what is appropriate. Like, for example, this is a standard. Landscaping is composed of non-invasive drought-resistant plantings that may include trees, flowers, shrubs,
Where are you?
succulents, and ornamental grasses. This is in under landscaping.
Okay, and so we're
Yeah.
changing what, we're
Yeah,
changing,
we take
This
the
section
landscape,
or not?
Get rid of landscaping
right, because
features.
it's redundant.
Right,
So now, is that something that has
Oh,
to be,
okay.
have a public hearing and reviewed, because we're moving something, because it's somewhere else, so.
Any changes to the design guidelines.
Okay,
So these things can't be used to evaluate the fire station, because we're just coming up with them now.
Yeah.
So
Right.
they've already designed, you know, based
Oh,
on
yeah.
the old guidelines, so this is for future,
Right.
nothing to do with.
right, and
fire.
if we did do the fire station, they come out pretty well anyway, I mean, there's hardly.
well, cause we don't even have that many changes.
Well, they say the building
This is
massing
the
was
check
the
sheet.
only one that they actually passed, but you have to go into the worksheet and check off the 3 different things that they did to make the building look smaller. So at first, they feel that they don't automatically pass, but then when you go through the worksheet, they do pass, or, which is new also, so it's, and I added it specifically to get them to pass, so.
And right now too, the check sheet, we've changed. I don't think we've really changed much from. They didn't have shutters, you know, what if we changed there that would affect them anyways,
well,
from old to new?
Well, I say, this is the checklist too, so. it's
Yeah.
Brand new, the whole thing is brand new.
Right, but it matches what's in the design review guidelines.
Right, well, then the wording is in passive form or whatever you said that. You
Right.
Must have had English in school. I'm an engineer, so.
My mother was a teacher.
Okay, so for, it's gonna say materials used for building exteriors and then take out
Yeah.
and landscaping.
Do we want any
fences.
fences?
yeah, we think, well,
Well, what
Well,
does
you-
that even mean, New
Yeah.
England fence?
I have no
mean,
idea.
A fence is a fence.
And
I
it
mean,
says specifically brick stone, so we're not gonna have a stone wall. would be
Yeah,
nice,
and
but-
usually like chain link fence is
Well,
grandfathered
okay.
anyway, so.
fencing, well, and we had this discussion with 50 Southwest cutoff. There was, because it was abutting residential, there was a big fence that was put up between them. And the question that I had was, do you want it to look more residential or do you want it to look more commercial? And the difference between a residential and commercial obviously would be either the lattice on the top versus a straight. We don't see much of the wood ones anymore. You see mostly
Right.
plastic ones, but that doesn't preclude that people wouldn't go back to the wood stockades. So that's the other thing, maybe the word that doesn't really say what fencing looks like, but in Arizona, again, they're blocks, they're cement blocks that make fencing. There's, each part of the country has a different way of creating that division. So,
I think that that's also, I mean, something like fencing is up to interpretation. I mean, what are you going for? Are you a Japanese restaurant? Okay, if you're a Japanese restaurant, then chances are you're gonna pick a fence that is more in character with.
it
The
was matching the,
theme.
right, matching the building.
So I
And I
that's
suppose,
something I don't think we should even
Yeah, you know what
talk about.
looks
It's
Right.
that's-
Tough, I mean, just about nobody that I've seen lately does a wood type of fence,
Right.
unless it's a authentic split rail or something like
well,
that.
that's right, yeah,
The tall 6 foot cedar stuff I haven't seen forever. I
right,
mean, it's maintenance, you can't get good, you literally can't get good wood anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
The stuff that's coming out of, it's just junk.
so the difference then is thinking, because we want them to hide the dumpsters,
Mhm.
Yeah,
that, and you made a point of this, that chain link and that stuff that goes in between chain link,
Yeah,
yeah, the privacy slab.
yeah, that's a different look.
That's
than-
like an industrial, so
Yeah,
so when I think of the chain link with the privacy slats, I think industrial application. So like a stockade or a solid vinyl fence. That's something that I would like to see in a commercial or a multifamily application.
right.
So but whether they have the lattice on the top or whatever, I think that that's
It's-
personal choice.
Yeah, let's just cross it off.
When
It's in parentheses.
when it comes time to fencing around dumpsters, it's difficult because it needs to be gated.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
and to do that out of vinyl with the amount of times, the gates open and close and the truck goes in and out and gets whacked by the snow plows and everything else. It's difficult to come up with material other than a chain link fence with a slat in.
Right,
Because the vinyl is just gonna,
the cold and the cold weather.
Gives long
and
time.
the vinyl will shatter when
Right.
it's cold.
Right.
And repeated opening and closing, you got employees that are slamming the doors.
They have like a garland type of stuff instead of the slats too. which I don't-
Yeah, there's some different things, so can't we take fencing out on its own?
Yeah, well, fencing
Yeah.
it's not on our list of.
Because we asked them to do it in certain places, so you have to
I think
stuff.
you can take it on a case by case basis and
Yeah.
just look at the fence that they're proposing and if
Yeah,
you don't like
different
it.
periods of architecture are
comments
gonna
on
call for a different fence anyway, so.
And
Let's
and
just
if it's
cross it
behind
off
the building,
and move on.
it.
And no one
Exactly.
sees it.
Nobody sees it, then.
Yeah, that's,
So what are we doing with crossing it up?
yeah,
Okay, so we're
But we
gonna
just
add
need
to
to
the
see it a different
guidelines
way.
so you wanna keep in the New England town, but then we're gonna define that.
Yeah, and do you put in a asterisk next to it, or does it matter?
I just wrote define.
Oh,
yeah, and it's like, as far as our checklist goes, as long as we don't have an item on our checklist for landscaping or fences, then
we
we
can,
can cross it off. I mean, we don't have to have a check for every item.
in the beginning, we can have a New England definition.
Right. Yeah, but I.
yeah, some reference.
I think a reference card is good on that, because I
Oh, and the
like that
technique, yeah.
one, I mean, yeah, I don't care, as long as it's available to somebody, who can reference it. And there's no rush to do that, I mean, it's already in there now, and it's open to interpretation, so. We can interpret it. Make it.
Okay.
Okay, the next one is roofs, so this was, since we were rewording it anyway, I wanted to take off the. May not extend further than 2 feet. Cause that just seemed kind of odd to have in the guidelines, and it's not in the bylaws, I don't think.
I did keep it. It may not
Is that
extend.
the dimensional requirements?
Really?
Because
Because 38 inches is.
About setbacks of the building to the lot line. Where, say you got a 15-foot setback, under the dimensional things in here, it says, Yeah, you have to adhere to the setback, and the roof line cannot extend more than 2 feet.
Because
So it's-
the
so that's-
recommended overhang on a passive solar heated house is like 38 inches for this longitude.
Shading?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that it blocks the sun in the summer unless the sun in the winter.
They were talking about that for the town hall, if it was next to White Cliffs, if they were building a new building, they would want that roof overhang.
Yeah,
So what
For
happens?
the passive,
Well, it's, as long as you're not dealing with the required yard setbacks, you can have overhangs as big as you want.
Oh,
so it's, yeah, it's okay.
It's only when you get into the side yard setback, okay? In this case, a lot of these these lots don't have a side yard setback.
Right, right,
So, you know, it might make sense to limit it to 2 feet as a stylistic thing.
right. Yeah, because what are you gonna hit the side, hit the lot line with your?
Yeah, obviously you can't have it roof extending over the lot,
Mm,
Yeah.
you know, which if they wanna do an extended roof, you may run into that. So, you know, keeping the 2 feet, it's a style thing, so it's for code.
okay.
But that 2 foot reference is.
Is it? Yeah. All right, so I know, I say we just keep it then.
keep it the red,
Keep the original language.
Well, oh, no, your
red.
revised,
The
which
red.
includes it.
One of the things about roofs, I just want to point out. And this is a situation that happened in Grafton, where I live, I go by this thing almost daily. They put a brand new housing, you know, 4-story apartments, you know, high density, affordable, that whole thing. Nice style on the buildings. They got like a widow's walk up at the top, right? You know what they put inside the widow's walk? All of your HVAC equipment
oh my gosh.
from the street. It's like, whoa. So, you know, watch for that.
Right, is that something we should put, like, no, I know,
Well, it's something maybe, you know, rooftop units or RTUs, you know, excessive venting pipes, that sort of thing, air intakes. It should be screened.
okay.
at least.
Yeah, I think we have that already.
Mhm.
We, I think
Yeah,
that's
under
a
mechanical.
standard.
In the mechanical,
One thing though, from the black to the red, it says flat roofs are discouraged in all business areas.
I think we should
I
add
think we should leave it there. Because,
discouraged, although they can be really nice in the downtown
Yeah,
area. They have
it's
that
funny, this is a
decorative
trending
cornice.
thing, if you look at old western towns, they took a pitched roof and then put a flat facade on it to make it look like a flat
Yeah.
roof, so.
Because
it's a
that's
styling
actually
thing.
the historic, that's like an 1800s.
Yeah. That also-
Style for downtown locations, is they have that. Actually, look at the hair salon on School Street, the white with the pretty awning.
Mhm.
The striped awnings,
Wood Street,
I think it's a dentist on
Hudson
one
Street?
side, no, it's on School Street.
it used to be a country store back when.
They have that front, they have the cornice up on the top, it's flat.
what town? In Norfolk?
Right.
School Street?
Yeah.
There's something on
I think I got it,
135 is Hudson
South Street,
Street,
you mean South Street.
yeah.
oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
I'm like,
Yeah,
School Street,
you're
it's
right.
residential. I can't.
So there's.
I think I got a picture.
Yeah, they're two old pieces that used to be the,
Yeah, the old hardware store.
yeah.
That's
the
right.
old hardware.
So South Street, yeah, I was like, School Street.
The credit union in Grafton was done well, it's nice brick front, New England styles, pitch roof to the
Oh,
front,
there it is.
and it's got pitch roof in the back, but the middle third of the
Yeah.
back of the roof
I was just in Ross
is
Street.
flat.
Yeah.
But that's where they put all the rooftop units,
Another
and
thing,
you can't see it.
So that one's
Unless
flat
you
on
really
top?
go around back and look for it.
Yeah.
This
From the
little
street?
corner right here.
It's
Okay.
absolutely
As long as it
clean.
has
No offense coming from the
some
roof.
sort of
and I
decorative.
think
I
especially
think
because
downtown,
it's
like
such
I'm thinking
small
Rich
lots.
you know, then that might
downtown,
even
and it's
have.
really important to address that too,
Yeah.
because that's, where are they gonna put the stuff?
Right, and with mini splits and heat pumps and everything else, more of these units are gonna be showing up.
Right,
you know.
so I think you're absolutely right, we need to
Yeah.
make some sort of provision for that.
I would like to add this, so where it says in the downtown neighborhood, I think we should include downtown business. A flat roof structure is permitted only if it is built by an architectural firm.
I think you should keep some, I'd rather see it. I'd rather, like, when I look at, I have to say, when I look at the Mo's. So you have 3 squares, in the middle, 2 squares on the outside of a flat roof, and the middle one has this little teeny point on it like a hat. It's not a nice looking structure.
Yeah.
That's something that you guys
But
can
capping it with the,
discuss when it comes to.
We're capping it with something.
yeah, that's only on residential, and it kind of should really be on everything, I think.
Well, this is downtown neighborhood, and she's gonna add downtown business.
Okay.
Should we have business east, business west, like if it's flat?
Cause even here you get a flat roof,
Yeah.
and that looks attractive.
Yeah.
Is there like?
So that's the
I
down.
think there's a
the
trim or
neighborhood.
something, there's some sort of,
Some sort
Yeah,
of
they
business.
definitely have a decorative. I think in this case it's a,
it was on the weekend.
Oh, now you printed that in. 'Cause I
Yeah,
have
it
the
is
one that does
decorative.
mine.
It's not at the exact top, but it's close to the top,
Yeah,
but there's a lot of decorative versus this type of flat.
Right.
right, but the
Right.
thing is, when they build the new fire station, which doesn't have to conform with this, then they don't have that, so. Is that gonna be?
Do they have a parapet? I thought
I
they,
don't think they.
every time
if-
someone
if-
asked, they kept saying they have. a
well, they
parapet.
have, they alter the roof alignment.
Yeah,
So,
but not, so it's only over the large bay section. And would they have to add it to the side of the building if you can see it from certain angles? I mean, it's.
Like, sorry, how this
that's what I'm thinking.
Walgreens is discouraged, that's what probably I'm picturing it to look like.
Yeah. And like
It
the
even looks like bays
the
there.
Church
Yeah.
Street Fire Station does have that little point in the middle of it, so.
Yeah, there could be a little design,
Yeah, I would say, I don't.
so
I
it
mean,
doesn't look like. Like Walgreens.
Yeah. Yeah, something more decorative. See, they have,
We're just using them as an example because it's the newest one in front of
Yeah, so
us,
you can see the,
it's
the
just
roof
flat
monitors.
yeah,
across.
monitors, but there's nothing, it's just a straight line across.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't want, I mean, they're kind of locked in on the design now, so it's kind of.
Nothing's gonna change.
I mean, well, we could exclude them because they are setback.
Yeah, why not? There's really nothing we can.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, well, if it is.
You can just
stop
mention it, you know.
Yeah,
Right, that's what.
they could also put a sign there or something too, that may. Well, it's not a sign.
Even like if you look at Westboro, they're flat, but they have decorative
Yeah.
around the
Yeah.
top.
I mean, they got the arches and you don't wanna draw away from the arches, so.
Just stay on point.
Okay, so we're all set with that one. Next
so
one,
we're going with the red one and adding downtown business.
yeah,
Yeah.
and did we add business east, business west, or this is just downtown?
Well, if you put it all in, it's all done, it's not a
Well, I
surprise.
mean, if you go business west, then you know, business east.
Yeah.
And that includes like Texas barbecue, which has a flat roof.
Right.
But they had the awnings there that took care of that, so.
Wow.
Well, they have to put something there because they have put concrete above brick, so it's.
Yeah, that's fair.
I
Well,
think
I
we
hope that
should
doesn't
use
stay.
all of Main Street, because then it's
Yes,
a nice, when you
yeah,
drive
it's
through
one,
town.
it's one long drive.
Yeah.
One thing I always
Streets,
found kind of like why, is you're driving down 20 and some of it's got granite curbing and some of it's got bituminous curbing and some of it's got granite.
That's not
there,
for right now.
bituminous There, it's like,
We gotta keep going.
So you wanna do all business districts except highway?
yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and we don't have to do business south either.
Why
So if
not?
the guideline comes,
We were doing the Main Street, right?
Right,
Business south.
we
is
gotta be
like-
careful though, because if we're changing that for flat roofs, this is kind of a big thing that includes a lot of other stuff.
hmm,
You gotta be careful you don't apply it to other things listed here that you don't want to,
okay,
so it's tricky ground. And because really it says residential and now we're adding or commercial, or.
Where's
business
residential?
That's it. This section comes out, it's in the bylaws for residential. So it's, but not for commercial. See in the bylaw section, it's listed there, that's the section it.
Well, it has to be business, because we don't look at residential,
It's
like,
also found in the design guidelines.
Yeah, but it's residential downtown, residential buildings in the downtown district, I think it's on the guidelines.
oh. We'll have to review that.
Yeah,
Well, we have it.
just be careful with it.
Yeah, and I think Lori just said it's worded in the design review guidelines, so.
Yeah.
We're not really changing it, except for adding those.
But right, but that's only the reference of where it applies, so that's not something written into the guidelines, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think it's in the standards, just in the guidelines.
We're almost done.
Actually, we're proposing to put it in the standards.
Yeah.
So that would apply across the board. That's one of our zoning articles.
For this year.
So then it would go everywhere.
Well, that's why I say, we've got, once these are wrapped up, we have the bylaws that she came up with that we need to work into in a separate revision of this. I just wanted to wrap this one up so we can start merging that one.
Yeah.
Let's wrap.
Okay, next section is, okay, kind of, we've changed it twice as we talked, but Laurie this is the section on roof articulation such as domes, chimneys, and cupolas are encouraged, especially on large structures. And then we wanted to add when visible from the street. Yeah, because it's a large structure, nobody can see, that it's not relevant.
Okay.
Question on.
Next one.
Yeah.
Long, so I probably need to.
So this is the one,
Oh,
I didn't
okay.
have an issue with the 20% or more, but I was concerned about the 5,000 square feet. So
Okay.
what I was thinking about is like Northborough Crossing. So, and even Walmart. So we have various locations, business districts, where you have many buildings that are 5,000 square feet or more. But they may all be together. So like up at Northborough Crossing, pretty much all the buildings are for 5,000 square feet or more, except for maybe some of the restaurants. So
So
in my mind, it's less important to make the buildings look smaller when they're all large.
Isn't that like a different district though?
well,
but
it doesn't
this
define the
one-
district.
This one is for everywhere, so
So how about just?
maybe we should just define it as being in the downtown business
Yeah.
district.
That's fine, I mean, because the next thing on our list, once we're done with this, is to go over just the sheet for building massing, which addresses the same thing over again. Because it doesn't say you can't do a building more than 5,000 square feet, and I think actually we should stipulate, it may already be in there, that residential or single family houses are excluded, because, you know.
Well,
because
single
we're not even
families
into it,
don't
so-
adhere to
Yeah,
the
okay,
design
okay,
guidelines, they're
okay.
not triggered.
Yeah, so it's just saying, if it is large, then you just go through this checklist, and I think most of these buildings do. They call it, architects call it lightning features, which, you know, like the fire station did the horizontal change and they did the staggered front.
Right,
So those are two of them. And then there's just, you know, stepping back the different levels and stuff like that. And it's just, they have to look at it and see if it's feasible. And if it's not feasible, they don't get, you know, if you don't wanna say they failed this without giving them some way to say, well, you know, this building is gonna be big because it's a big building. I mean, it's a box store or whatever.
well,
What are you looking at, Mark?
So,
Actually, when I think of Norfolk Crossing too, they did do Cause I had to measure the front facade for the whole window sign thing. So Lori had given me the Sierra because that was the newest building done. And they do have little areas that bump out and go in and
Yeah.
different articulations.
Yeah,
So-
and we do say architectural techniques.
Yeah,
So what I did
wouldn't
was
wanna
I
take
started
that out.
researching the different architectural techniques and I listed
Oh.
all that I could find.
No, you're okay.
In fact, the increased setback really saves the fire station because the building will look smaller just because it's 70 feet back. So I added that one, and I only found that in one architectural book as a listed. But any others that they can suggest, that's why there's another category, so as long as they did, minimize the impact, that's fine.
Yeah, and that's why I guess I just
mean,
didn't wanna
okay.
add it for downtown business only because. Cause Walmart and even like Sierra, they do have,
Yeah,
they jagger it.
yeah, it looks good. But
So is it, if this wording changes, how does that affect Northbrook Crossing, or does it
well, I was saying,
not?
we were originally saying, let's just have it downtown
Oh, I
business,
see.
but I don't want it just downtown business, cause then we take away
I
what
said-
they did up there.
The wording is in the guidelines and bylaws already. I'm just trying to define, what a large building is
Okay,
and what architectural techniques are. And
Reach
that's,
up the door.
in architectural
Okay.
techniques, it's probably gonna be a list that
Thanks.
gets added to all the time, because I'm sure I didn't come up with them, none.
right. Well, and I think that one's already there, so that's not gonna change. What are we doing in that area?
Well, I think we could go back and look at their buildings, and they would have, they stepped the faces,
Yeah,
and they did some horizontal banding, and columns.
right.
So they did 3 techniques, which gets them off the hook for, they pass, basically.
Okay.
Okay, so what are we trying to decide with this one? The 20%,
Well,
the 5,000
the 20% and the 5,000 square feet, I mean, I kinda. I saw that in other towns, I saw one town use 50% larger, so I'm just trying to throw a number in there where it's cut and dried what a larger building is. Versus just saying a larger building.
Right, so if it's like 2 small buildings in a row, you don't feel like the other one should be dinged because it's just larger.
Yeah.
It needs to be substantially larger, or at least,
Well, in the second one in the box, no wall surface, on roof surface, or roof surface.
Well, don't
continuous,
go
isn't
into
that-
those.
yeah, we're not there yet.
Yeah, those are new things,
You're
so,
jumping ahead.
I mean, we can't just add those anyway, but,
How are we gonna define large? Because if you're
Right.
talking about 5,000 square feet, is that 5,000 square feet of footprint? Is that 5,000 square feet of gross floor area?
good question.
Yeah.
Because if it's a 3-story and it's 2,000 square foot footprint, you get a 6,000 square foot building.
Right,
So.
And say, we're trying to just come up with a number to define large, or, and say, this is not a pass or fail thing, it's just go on to the next level.
right, so that's very good.
And I know like the old bylaws, like 2008 was like, they broke up things by like 20,000 square feet, like. The 25,000 square foot building. I'm just thinking of industrial,
What, is that
needed a special
building-
permit if you were larger than that.
Right, but is that building what Bob said, is it footprint,
Right.
Yeah,
or is it gross?
I'd say it's total, I mean,
I think 5,000 square feet is a small building in certain districts, and it's a large building in other.
well, we,
districts. Like
we,
downtown, it would be a
historically,
large
the,
building, but in
CVS is
Northborough
15,000
Crossing, it's
square
small
feet.
building.
Right, so
and that got
that's-
flagged as a large building by design review
Depending
many
on
years
what
ago.
district it's in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we know
Maybe
it's
by
at
percentage.
least
Maybe,
15,000.
well, maybe by
Yeah.
percentage perhaps.
well,
Is
what
that what
Mark
you
just said
did?
made sense.
Okay.
He
So-
said
so
CVS was
CVS
15,000.
got flagged for this as a large building, and they went through these steps, and they had all the dormers and the pitched roof and everything to make it look smaller, so. But if you're talking apartment building or something like that, 5,000 is,
Tiny.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
if you're up at Northborough, Avalon of Northborough, then 5,000 square feet is a really, really small building.
but a town, townhouses, that's 3 units probably.
Okay.
So I think something like, I don't wanna bring up one that's in litigation, but, that's there's examples of 7,000 square foot buildings that got flagged for this, so.
Yeah, that's the, I do think the footprint, I mean, what Bob said to the footprint size and the gross, there should be a donation of what the difference is.
Yeah,
Because-
when you talk about large and you add percentages,
Right,
is it gross floor area or is it basically foundation area?
yeah, I like
That-
having that,
You should probably have some sort of clarification.
yeah, I think it's very important.
And if we go back to the original community development plan, they even laid out what size buildings should be in each district, like Business West was bigger than Business East, and, I don't know. Like you said, each district is supposed to be conforming to certain size buildings.
So I wonder if it's easier just to stick to the percentage. So then you're being more in keeping with the character of each district rather
we
than
could do
trying to
that,
define.
Maybe if we do that though, 20% is kind of tight. I mean, maybe increase that, say, 30 to 50%, somewhere in that range.
I agree. So,
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So, but I still, and I wanna be able to make the difference, what Bob said about whether it's the footprint or whether it's the gross. So how do you work that in?
gross square footage, I would say.
Well, gross square footage is, the sum of all the floor area.
Yeah.
So if you get a 2,000 square foot building in the basement, with 3 stories, it's 8,000 feet.
But percentage wise still applies though, because.
Yes, so I'm saying percentage is the way to go.
Yeah, that sounds good.
It's like the
I think
windows.
Sturbridge used 5,000, that's where I got the number from.
So should we get rid of the 5,000 and just say, for buildings that are larger than adjacent buildings by 40%?
That's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
because 30 seems small, but 50 seems high.
Yeah.
40%.
Okay. Maybe. And it can be, I mean, they complete their case before design review or something, and it can be flexible if.
And this is a guideline, this isn't a bylaw, right? I can't remember, so if it's a
Yeah.
guideline, there's always room for interpretation.
And we
Right, but
covered
no-
this in
no
our
room for appeal.
duplex design guidelines too.
Yeah.
We did duplex design guidelines, so we didn't need a public hearing. And I just go in front of the.
We did a
I
public
was gonna go back and read the minutes, but I think it was just in front of the planning board.
This takes.
But we could double check.
Yeah.
We did a public hearing.
Yeah.
We didn't do a
Yeah.
public hearing.
So do you wanna?
But we can figure that out.
The next one, I think we need to clarify.
What we say, 40%? Okay. Well, the next two are actually,
These are new ads? These are the only 2 new ads.
oh, well, they're bylaws that are not in the guidelines, the first. And then the second one is a bylaw that only applies in one district. So,
The first one, I had concerns because, like particularly Walmart, Northborough Crossing, you have large expanses of blank walls on the sides of buildings and in the rear of buildings. So the rear of buildings is just used for voting and storage, and of course, they're very particular about not wanting windows because of theft, and
Mhm.
so I think if you want to include that, it should specify the front facade.
yeah, I think this is
says as
another one I
seen.
added, as seen from the street, which I think I added as I was going through these.
Yeah, cause that way is I've seen from the street, if there are side ones, if you have.
Well,
a corner-
something like
corner
Wegmans,
lot.
is that even seen from the street?
It's not
I
seen,
mean,
it's
I
a whole
mean,
building.
Seen from the
isn't
parking
seen.
lot doesn't really count, right? So,
Once again, I think I prefer the front facade. I mean, and then in the downtown area, it's more important to also ensure that there's windows on the sides.
Right.
Right,
But not up at Northborough Crossing,
Yeah,
so
so-
I think it depends on where you are in the town, whether you should have this, like maybe this should be downtown business and downtown neighborhood.
Yeah,
only.
I agree, or conversely, the other one, not agree.
Right. And
Because Northbrook Crossings, it's only
Right,
are we gonna do that again? We're gonna
But
take a
we-
mountain off and do it again.
we may though, because right now we've got an article proposing to rezone the gravel pit, so that's a huge amount of potential development for big box retail, and that's probably what it'll be.
You don't think it'll go into apartments?
It's not zoned.
It's not
for-
allowed.
It's not allowed.
well, unless it gets zoned, so. But
Right.
there's no plans to do that now, right? So-
No,
How many years do they expect that to be done? 5?
they've been saying 7 forever.
3,
So
they're gonna be-
probably 30.
they're filing a preliminary plan next week to freeze their zoning for 8 years. So if the rezoning passes, then they can still do an industrial development for 8 years, and then after that, they have to conform with the new zoning
So they've already filed that?
next week.
That's true. Let's get commercial. All right,
Yeah, but I mean,
like
who
that
knows?
in there.
I-
Some good stone.
I've heard that they've been finishing up the last 15 years, so.
Mhm. I said the last couple of times I've called, they've shipped my stuff up from Blackstone where their other place is, because they said that wasn't even operating at the moment, so. But I've,
I can
last
get
time I was
them
at
from my
Wegmans,
house.
it was going full tilt, I mean, they had trucks lined up.
Yeah. I drive by it every day and, you know, sometimes it seems dead as can be, but lately it seems like they've been active.
I'm still seeing the trucks up and down Route 20.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they say their trucks also come from Blackstone though, so
Yeah.
it's the same company.
Yeah, and I know the fire department is still out there. I mean,
Yeah,
you can check with them and see how.
Every time
Oh, yeah, if you go
Yeah.
around the back
I
of
can feel
Wegmans,
it
you
from
can
my
look right
house.
down into it,
Yeah.
they said last time I was there, they had like 10 trucks lined up waiting for that.
Yeah, actually, I saw a big plume of
the stuff.
smoke or
Dust.
I don't dust, I don't know, last time I was up at Northborough Crossing,
Mhm.
so. All right, so how are we gonna change this one?
Right,
We're gonna change, all right, we're still on the continuous 50 feet, I mean, we can change the number of 50 feet too if you want, I noticed one town used 100 feet, but. The front facade, instead of seen from the street, and then you're gonna work out the districts and.
We're gonna do downtown business.
I wonder if we should just put in the guideline exactly what's in the bylaws.
Yeah.
Because you
I would think
alluded
so.
to 709-020-D1, and I happen to have that page open.
Yeah, and I put reference in front of that, which means it's just, I think, a suggestion of something in the guideline, or
Yeah, I think
it
we
wasn't
should keep it the
exactly the
same.
guideline.
And it even says subject to review by the design review committee, like, it's talking about which, the front facade of a new building
Oh, yeah, here we go.
and the building's principal entry shall be oriented towards the street.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is in all
That's
business
fine.
districts and downtown neighborhood. Building is designed to avoid unarticulated and monotonous building facades and window placements, regular spacings, and building placements that will be viewed from the street as continuous blank walls. That's a standard.
Yeah, and so 50 feet is not in there.
So maybe we just get rid of it.
Yeah, and then just add this as a guideline, it's, if it's a, no, it's just not in the guidelines now, so.
Yeah, it's gonna be on the check sheet.
Yeah.
But I think Lori, you added all these to the
These
check
would be
sheet.
on
Yeah, yeah, you probably did, I haven't started on, I just wanted to wrap up that version so that, and I did create a spreadsheet that have your new suggestions separated out so that we can compare them. And I said there's a lot of redundancies, so.
so
But that's for a
50 feet
different
doesn't
meeting.
appear anywhere.
Mhm.
No, the 50 feet isn't.
I'd say I copied that out of
Somebody.
either Acton or
Okay.
Sturbridge, because they had pretty good ones.
You know, it's interesting because when you see some of the things that have come forward, like there was somebody who's trying to build a little mall in the area where used to be the golf, little putting golf on Belmont Street, Route 9. He would design something that, you know, here, and then there was one here, then it went back, but it wasn't like up, it had 3. Yeah, it was. Look at those, but we couldn't do it. But I think when you look at them, Shrewsbury, what do you call it? Christmas tree shop, that whole structure was all done to look.
Okay,
articulated.
the last one.
Yeah.
So what are we doing with that one again? Sorry.
We're taking 50 out, 50 feet out.
50 out and working out what districts it applies in and adding it as a guideline, basically.
Yeah.
However wording, I mean,
Since it's already a standard though, I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
think we have to add it as a guideline,
No, just keep it as a standard.
right?
well,
It's
Does it have to
already
meet it?
required in all districts except for highway business.
Yeah.
but we're going back and adding all of the standards into the guidelines.
I don't think we are though. I think we're just putting them on the checklist, right? Cause when I sit
Yeah,
down with
right.
people, I tell them to look at the zoning bylaws and here are the design guidelines. I don't think we need to copy everything that's in the zoning bylaw and put it in the design guidelines. It's redundant.
Right, if anything, if design review went away, I'd take everything in the design guidelines and put it in the standard.
Well, I'd say there's a very close correlation though between guidelines and standards, and that's what the reference column, which kind of points to the guideline that it corresponds to, and there's probably only maybe 30% of them are guidelines without being standards.
Oh,
So
so it just notes differently in this area.
Think about the guidelines, it gives the design review committee and the special permit granting authority and the applicant, and we have a little bit of flexibility in the design, given, what the neighborhood looks like, what the stretch of road looks like, topography, all that sort of stuff. But I think the guidelines, standard is one thing, but a guideline is where your creativity can come into play.
Yeah, it's just kind of, okay, well, these are the things we're requiring, those are in the zoning bylaw. But these are the things we'd like you to think about. So this is kind of, this is the inspiration guide and this is the stuff you have to do.
So just a question that, we've had come up, the last couple of different things before us. There's going to be a new trend of going, well, just an advisory committee and we're just really not interested in, these things. How does that change? I mean, now that that's the new flavor.
I don't think it,
It never used to be.
the permitting authority is the planning board and the ZBA. So I guess it just, it's how much credence the permitting authority is gonna give to the design review committee.
Right.
So they have, they can take the recommendations or not.
So say it's a guideline and we say, okay, we would like you to do A, B, and C. And it goes to the permit and granting authority. Can they even say you have to do A, B, and C because the design review guide said to? Oh, I guess you could, because when you go down the criteria to approve or deny, you can say, well, doesn't meet. I have to read the criteria, but.
Yeah, the planning board and the ZBA really are the ones ultimately making the decision.
Right.
So, so the design review committee could come up with 6 recommendations. And they could go along with all 6 recommendations. They could pick and choose. Maybe they like these 2, but they don't like these 4. I guess the benefit of the process is that you're coming in early on and you're having the dialogue with the applicants. And it's supposed to be a collaborative process. So you're supposed to be like, okay, well, this is what we think you should do. We think that this would improve the look of your project. And then the applicant can say, yeah, I agree with you. I'm gonna make those modifications, or they can say, I don't agree with you. I'm gonna try my chances with the permitting authority. So, that's
like I
kind
said-
of the benefit of it. And, you know, hopefully it's that collaborative process, but it doesn't always end up that way.
Well, and that's what I'm saying, it's a trend, because when One Lyman Street came in front of us, and they did an amazing job, whoever their architect was, the drawings, and wasn't it wonderful? I mean, really, really well done. And then, you know, it was, well, the designer said, well, can we move the door over here X amount of feet and give me a picture of what that's gonna look like? And they went right back to the computer and they came back with the full drawings again. They really did a fabulous job. At no time did they go, well, why do I have to do that? Why do I have to do this? And then as time went by, it got to be, no, and that's your interpretation. So with the trending and going to town meeting, if, you know, there's enough people that say, you know, we don't really feel that we want to go through that, back to the planning board and back to the ZBA, at least if we produce a guideline situation that says, here you go for them, there's still gonna have to be people to do it. And you see design review sprinkled through everything.
Yeah, you know,
So,
with the fire station, so of course, you guys saw that I already prepared my letter for planning board. So, you know, just for fun, I took this because this is what currently exists. And I went through and I analyzed the application based on the spreadsheet. And when I got to the end, you know, I had a few comments, which you saw in the letter. But when I got to the end, I'm like, wow, they did a really good job looking at the design guidelines and the design standards, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And adhering to them. And so there were actually going through the exercise, I'm like, wow, kudos, you know, clearly they took the design guidelines and the design standards very seriously when they designed the building.
Yeah.
And so regardless, I think it's super helpful to have design guidelines. It's super helpful to have design standards because those applicants want to know, you know, they want to present a project that everybody loves, that's gonna get them through the process as quickly as possible. I think the issue with the ice cream is a lack of understanding on certain points of what the committee was looking for. And I don't think that they were intentionally saying, well, we don't care what you think. I think there was a difference of opinion. Like they really wanted it to look like a 1950s diner, and they thought that that complied with the design guidelines the way they are written. So I think it was a difference of interpretation of the design guidelines. I don't think it was a snubbing of the nose of the design review committee. So, you know, I think that they have a lot of value regardless, and I think that they're helpful. And you know, it's just a matter of
Well, the thing is though,
process.
the current guidelines, probably 30 to maybe even as high as 50% are just restatements of bylaws. If we get rid of those and keep the bylaws, because that's really gonna shorten the guidelines.
I think, you know, there are some things that should be standards, that should be requirements. I think that, you know, I wouldn't put pictures in the design, in the zoning bylaw, so I think the pictures are helpful. I think the importance of the guidelines is to make them flexible enough. In my opinion, they should inspire creativity, not, you know, hem people in. So,
Well, there's also a higher probability of somebody that's doing a building reading the guidelines. And, you know, bylaws are kind of standardized, but I mean, differences, but. So I kind of like leaving them the way they are in there, and then in which case we'd have to add this one just to be. In the one after that too.
Okay,
But we can
that's
think
not
about
in
it.
there right now,
Yeah, I'd say
So
it's
that-
not a guideline right now.
even though it's a standard, but you'd like to see it in the guideline if
Yeah.
they're just looking at the guidelines.
And actually the next one more so, because the next one it's in one district only, and it's, if I'm,
I think it's an overlay.
I don't even know the difference, so, the, if you're doing a multifamily in a single family neighborhood, you have to try to do the, massing schemes and everything to make it look like a single family house.
I like that.
I think that's in for one district only, and I think if that was a townwide guideline, it would have prevented the litigation of the current one.
That's, yeah.
And I think it's a good one to have, because we're doing the MBTA communities where there might be multifamily buildings, so if they match the neighborhood that they're in, I think they will be accepted more.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and that's something you need to know at the beginning when you start your
Right,
design.
Yeah, because you don't want people doing things and they have to do.
Yeah, I would say there's nothing wrong with,
Mhm.
townhouses, if it's in a section of townhouses or.
Right, and it's only one.
We changed multi-use to mixed use, just because that's what our zoning calls it.
Oh, it probably was from the old then, yeah. he
Well,
took
it was,
from the-
it's whatever was
overlay.
online.
it was
It's like,
old.
I cut and pasted some. I certainly didn't. take
I find
these.
sometimes the online doesn't match the book.
That shouldn't happen.
Right.
Okay, so, but adding these also.
I do like that one.
promotes the,
Mhm.
well, that's why I say, I'm trying to look at these things from fresh eyes where I've never really been involved in this and,
That's
but,
right.
and I've witnessed the different hassles that have come up in town. And then, go back and read these things, I said, that probably would have prevented. So
Yeah, I agree. I think that's, and I think the fresh eyes is great.
I'm starting to lose those, so.
Me too. I can't look at this as so small anymore, my other go.
Okay,
Well,
so
it's, the sun
Yeah.
Monday.
do you agree with that, Lori, adding that in somewhere?
Yeah, I might say for multifamily and mixed use buildings.
And again, it should get reviewed by planning board and the open, because maybe it's something the town doesn't want,
Mhm.
So that's really the only new ad, the other ones are just wordsmithing that we can run by too. And some of them, they make it actually easier,
Mhm.
not trying to make it harder. And then we're gonna work on a one-page definition
Less.
about New England.
Yes, New England
Yes,
architecture.
Maybe
one,
work on that.
page or two sides, so, and I have it, I just want to, I think it's a good starting point.
Yep.
And what was it?
Yeah.
And
Medway,
that way,
yeah,
did it, but they copied Medford, which gets really confusing.
And how you say it.
Yeah, a totally different challenge,
okay,
but they had examples of the buildings and, they had stolen the drawings from what credited them. But I think, some of those examples are, right on in Northborough, and you could probably use photographs or drawings of Northborough buildings for that.
Okay. I like
They
that.
didn't do their Queen Anne style, it's not what I think of when I think of Queen Anne. Queen Anne, right?
The
Queen
white
Anne.
cliffs.
Yeah, we got the
That's
white
my
cliffs.
house.
Unfortunately, it doesn't look any good now.
That's my
Yeah,
house. Mine's
technically, the White Cliffs is that / shingle, because the original doesn't have shingles, it just has stonework, so like, in
The
your.
ba-
down
the
there, yeah,
first page.
That's
Well,
just-
the Eustace estate,
Eustace,
yeah.
yeah, cause that's all stone.
But mine's Queen Anne. And it's,
Yeah.
it's like 5 different sets of
Yeah,
shingles.
yeah, yeah,
and-
but Queen Anne's don't have shingles, so it's the shingle style, you can do the slash and combine the two,
Yeah.
because they do look very similar. I've heard,
you guys know
House is
way
pretty
more than
close
I
to
do
me.
about this.
What is it called, painted lady? Where
Yeah,
they have eight different colors.
It
like almost like
might
a
have been at
touring
one
thing.
point, it might have been,
Oh,
but
it
it
built at
was,
the
but it
same
was
time
built
as
for
the
the
White
White
Cliffs.
Cliffs.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I never saw the White Cliffs in multicolored.
well, that's
I
cause
think it was like a maroon.
Well,
Brown.
the
color.
pictures we
was
found were black and white pictures that were colorized.
Yeah.
Kind of like a brownstone,
Yeah.
and we don't know if that's true or not,
But if you look at some of the other structures like that, there's one in Worcester and there's some around, it depended on, it didn't look like they changed the colors much. So there must have been like a couple of years where they weren't as crazy and then when they went to.
well,
the painting,
there
it
was a
like
cream
Hudson.
colored period,
Yeah. So, and interestingly enough, my garage I built to kind of mirror the house. And Karen Gibbleman took that style and did those condos up behind, 7 Monument Place. Where the band came out, and this was a slab boards down here, and this was shingling up there, and it was all done in vinyl, it was faded. But that got to be kind of a combo. And
Okay,
so we're all done with that?
we're all done though. These are just the changes. So now
I have a different spreadsheet. Did I send it?
I don't know. So now we have to figure out
I
the
did send
changes
it,
are
but I have all
incorporated
types of
into
typos.
lists.
Yeah, so I think
Was that the one that got sent out last night?
it just sent the PDFs last night. So it got too confused, with the PDFs, you can just print the relevant page. I had to, just for the sake, we'll probably recombine it, but I separated onto tab each different category. And that's just because I needed to, we've got 2 sets of revised things in play at once. And we need to kind of consolidate that and make sure these changes are included in her changes. And then her changes, have you gone through and looked for redundancies yet, or?
Yeah, part of that is, I guess I went and talked to you. So the white are the design guidelines, and then the gray are the design standards.
Oh, okay.
And so there are certain design guidelines that are of similar language to the
Right.
design standards, but maybe not exact.
Right, they just changed the wording to make it be a guideline versus a legal
Yeah.
document.
So a couple of them, I just took the liberty of deleting the design guideline because they were so close in language that I just put it as a design
Right, but now
standard.
we've got a document that doesn't have your deletions, so we'll keep them separate, we'll go through it page by page, I mean, there's no
Yeah.
reason to rush on that, we do it right.
But maybe we could, like some of these design guidelines, maybe on your own, after the meeting, you could look up and see if you think we can just delete. So what we could do is we could say, so what I tried to do is, if it was mandatory, so it's in the design standard, but it's only for one district in the design standard, but then it's in the design guidelines. So what I said is, it's mandatory in downtown business district, but it's recommended in all other districts. So that's kind of the way I handled it.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
I agree.
So some of these we may be able to just
Right.
remove.
Right, and I've gone through, I started to go through her list and reference the one from the other list as to which they were similar to, so we can compare them individually, but once I can do a before and after. Once we don't have 2 sets of revisions.
Okay.
So I've started that, I broke each category onto a separate tab on that document for now. And I just have a black line going across the middle with this set that we're working on, and then hers underneath. But we'll update the top part, get rid of the black line, and then I'll go through and stagger them so that the grouped items are together, so we can go through them line by line.
Okay.
And it's not as bad as it sounds, I mean, there's probably only maybe 20 that have some
And
questions.
here she grouped them,
Yeah,
right.
okay.
so the same.
Yeah, okay, yeah, so that's newer. I mean, okay, yeah. I was working off of the previous.
Right, I guess we just have to get all of the same
She
page.
sent out hers as I was about to send out mine.
Right.
Well,
Right.
I'm like waiting, and I'm like, am I getting something from Mark? I'm like, oh God, the meeting's tomorrow. So I
Yeah, I
didn't
know.
wanna not have anything to discuss, so I just sent mine out, and you sent yours out like 15 minutes
Yeah,
later. and I'm like,
yeah,
oh,
well, because I
no.
opened my
right.
email to send it, and it's like, oh.
So it's very tedious work.
Oh,
That's
no,
one
yeah,
thing about
it
design
is.
work and.
You have to
doing
just
booklets.
walk away from it every now and then too,
Yeah.
or procrastinate it.
Yeah, well.
And it's also confusing, the way the zoning bylaw is written. Like I said, it breaks it out to certain districts, so there's some that apply to pretty much all districts, and then there's some that are only certain business districts, and then there's another one that's just downtown business or just downtown neighborhood. And so it makes it cumbersome to do this.
I just want you guys to get on the same page, so you're not doing it, he's not doing it,
Right,
just,
that's,
yeah.
yeah, it's, and until we merge everything, we'll be fine, so we'll get these wrapped up and then. But I would say a lot of them are identical, you know, the above and below the line are identical. And said, these are the only differences, and then the ones she's kind of refined since then.
Okay, so we have that
So-
last page with the line.
So are you gonna take her stuff into your spreadsheet, or she's gonna take your stuff into her spreadsheet, like, is it, right now, it seems to be two.
Well, do you let me do it first, and then I'll send it to you, you can double check it, because you're better at doing the districts, because you know them and I don't.
Oh, I don't wanna do those districts again. I think the way I did it here is pretty much. That I noticed that there were a couple where I didn't write the district, so that means that I have to double check
We
it.
can leave the districts off and then say that, but we'll combine them with this one too, that works.
So what is ultimately going to be the end product? I guess that's the
That's what I'm wondering
question,
too.
like,
Well, I think,
which format do you like to use? Do you like to use his format, which I think that's like
I
13
can-
pages,
right,
or
and I can-
mine 11 by 17.
yeah, I think they're
Which
kind of the
combines
same,
it.
but it's different columns. I consider mine a work in process, you know, just something that I can use in Excel, and it's going to get exported into you know, Adobe Forms or something like that.
Yeah, we talked to them about it to make it into a PDF when it's done, so that there are pages that are readable pages, because these are not really readable
Right.
pages. So when it gets this small, I feel like
Oh,
I'm getting ready for town
Yeah, and
meeting.
it's like, even
Yeah.
since this one, I mean, how many pages does it come up to now? It's
I
like- it
think
was,
it's like 13,
yeah, it
and
was
this one is.
something that I didn't even wanna print.
I think
But
it's
that's
8
because I'm
pages.
concluding the before and the after too for
Yeah,
now.
yeah, so you have
And
to.
that kind of doubles the length of it.
Whatever.
Yeah, but I don't intend this to be the final format at all. And with yours, I find it helpful to have the column that references the bylaws, but if it's highlighted, it's kind of this, but it's nice to have the exact number too.
Hmm.
Not
Well,
that
I
you can
don't
just
think
type in
I
the
mind
exact
that.
number and find the bylaw.
Yeah, because I think that's, I mean, somebody who looks at paper more than computer, which is me. And we're finding even that when we're going into, you know, our meetings, if you have something here, now that we're back in person, you don't have the convenience of that screen to get everything from. And then sometimes the screen goes down, or you hit the wrong button, and it goes somewhere else. So having something in hard copy, I think is the best way to go. Once you guys have put these together, and then what I'd like to see is that, was it a writable PDF with that you can then make some adjustments that look more like the design guideline book. And anybody reading it, I mean, this certainly size-wise is much easier than this size-wise, but that's, you know,
Yeah, well,
that's
it's just
without
like
saying.
printing too.
Yeah, so, but you know, when somebody says, well, can you send me a PDF of it, and then they put it on their little computer, they're gonna get this and not this.
Well, this
So-
can be converted into a PDF.
Yeah, I say, they're almost, I mean, other than printing in landscape and portrait or
Hmm.
whatever, I mean, they're kind of the same format.
Is this
I mean,
one and this is the
started
other?
as the other, and,
Is that one, this is the other?
yeah, which, there's just a different number of columns.
Okay, and then we have to decide which columns we want to see.
Well, I have them all in there right now because we need the districts.
Yeah.
I like having the reference to the bylaw
Yeah,
number.
I like that too.
The pull down is something that when we get to the rubric, if I'm saying that correctly, that requires some scoring. So that what the old pull down was, and those cells then transfer to the cover page, which is like the report card. So those are all down the road. To make it simple, you really have to make, you know, the spreadsheet itself kind of complex. So, but you have to go through these series of steps. So one of the steps in the future is that when you come up, right now, the rubric itself is going to be the 12 categories or 14, whatever the categories are. We have to combine those and try to get that as low as possible, so you get a report card that only has like 6 grades on it. And then you have to weight them, because some things are more important, and not, but as a group, we have to decide that, and this is just the standard procedure when you're setting up one of these scorecards. And we can skip it if it's not necessary, but it's nice to have the 1-page summary. Cause that's the spot where we can put in our comments,
And the comments would be, like in the past, what we do is we write a recommendation letter to the special permit granting authority, so. We take the comments and just use those to write the memo.
Yeah, that makes it easier.
Well, things that aren't
Copy and
concerns
paste.
that aren't captured can go in the comments, but, the grade itself is the only thing, if they're a straight A student, the project, advances, and people are gonna read the grades, they're not gonna really necessarily read the comments, that's just to cover ourselves for,
I like the
That's not,
comments.
see, I'm looking at the comments become conditions of approval. So the grade isn't,
okay,
in
well, I'd say if we
my
don't.
opinion, it's not as important as, like, for me, as the person who's writing the decision for the planning board and the ZBA. What I'm looking for is I wanna know, okay, like one of my comments was, you shouldn't use that decorative fence for screening of the dumpster. My recommendation is that it should either be a vinyl or a stockade fence, so if the planning board agrees, and if you guys make a recommendation, then I would put as a condition of approval, prior to construction activities, you are going to revise the site plan to depict a white vinyl fence around the dumpster. So that's how it works ultimately at the end.
I think the term,
I'm in the same way. When it comes time for me to make sure that before occupancy is granted, I go right down that list of comments in the decision, okay, and that's
Right.
all I really pay attention to. Everything else above that on the document is just general information, but the only thing I can really enforce is the conditions in the decision.
I mean, the only thing is we don't call it Hooper, that's the only thing, I mean, because that is a synonym for school, report card, so.
Being on the board, like the planning board though, I'm afraid of giving grades. Because then that'll come from lawsuit, because they'll be like, well, we got an A, but now you deny
Well,
us.
but if you have 14 different categories and the sample was, conforms to all bylaws and guidelines for each category. If it doesn't, then it drops down to the next level, which variances are requested for non-conform, but meets all guidelines, and then there's a certain tier, on the pull down menu, that's the thing. Rubrics are designed to be either a box that you check off for teachers to just kind of say where the student is, or a pull down menu, which does the same thing. So it's using the word is, I'm kind of going that way because there was a big deal about using that word. I had to look it up to find out what it meant, and then watch videos on how to do them. So, and that's how I love them, so.
Yeah, so well, it's a lot of work. I mean, you've done a huge amount of work.
Yeah, but the categories, if you don't conform with all the things, then that can become the comment, saying.
Although, I still have to say, especially when we're talking about design guidelines, it might end up being a better quality product in the end if you don't conform with certain design guidelines. Because remember, those are just suggestions. So, it's not a one size fits all approach. So, maybe the project looks better if you have a different style of window, or, you have, this type of landscaping versus this type of landscaping, so that's the challenge, is if it's a report card type situation, it still could be a great project that's gonna be, a benefit to the community. So even though they don't necessarily meet all the design guidelines, they meet other design guidelines really, really well. So, maybe it would only be an 80, but maybe it's a beautifully designed project. So it's worthy of approval.
Well, what I'm more familiar with doing, do new product development, so you have different phases, you do a checklist. And then at the beginning of the check, you go through the checklist and you make your notes as required. Then you do an executive summary, highlighting only the important things, which, the shortcomings, strengths and weaknesses. And then it's just not calling it a rubric anymore.
Okay, get back to that when it's just a suggestion, we do a lot of work for just a suggestion.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
It
that's
seems to
why
me that
it was, I felt it was really important to put the mandatory requirements in here.
I think
absolutely.
suggestions should never count against somebody either, so maybe it doesn't even get a score.
But that's the whole thing with the word suggestion is that if you when we look at it and we say, okay, we talked about that fence, okay, do we suggest that you move Dave Aaron's pretty good about, can you move the dumpster over so many feet because of the plow and this and that, where they put it somewhere and nobody's really looking at that, but he does snow. It's not that he's necessarily doing it for landscaping, but he's looking at it as the snow part. It's still a suggestion. It's not like they're told that they have to do it unless it's too close to the lot lines, if I'm not mistaken.
So if it's a standard, they have to do it.
Right.
Or they have to request a waiver,
Right.
and that's legitimate. They submit a written waiver request, and then the planning board discusses it, and then they literally vote
Right,
whether to grant the waiver or not.
right.
And but the guidelines,
Well,
it's just a suggestion.
right, so if you fail a guideline,
Right.
there's no recourse, you don't have, a Board of Appeals for that. So it shouldn't count for any, I mean, actually though, if you're scoring this thing,
Yeah.
a guideline weighs more than a bylaw, which is not right, because there is no.
Yeah, and I think the score is based on the fact of what the design looks like, because it is a suggestion, and have you followed the suggestions, how often, that's where your totaling is coming from. But if we continue to hear it's just a suggestion and just a suggestion, we don't need to be here.
Oh, no, I mean, I think you're looking at the project in its entire context. So, okay, so there are these design guidelines, but you're looking at, oh, okay, what are the species of street trees that they're proposing? And, one of these is in the parking lot and it's not salt tolerant, so that's a bad suggestion. So then your suggestion is, I like your landscape design, but I want you to change this tree to this species of tree. And then you also having to do with, there may be some projects where you would like to see decorative pavers instead of, just concrete sidewalk. So that would be a suggestion that you make. So.
And that carries, not that one carrying forward, but a good example was on Hudson Street where we have the Mammoth two-family. And at the time that went in, they didn't have a walk that came from the front door out. They only had the walk that came to the side porch,
right,
and then they could go into the garage. And
yeah,
they
so
said-
that's a
So we said,
suggestion.
but I
But
was
the
it as
key is it's
consistent
supposed to
as-
be a
I think,
collaborative
there's-
process.
Yeah, but is
That's
that,
what
isn't that a guideline or is that a standard? To have a walk space? for
Like I
them?
said, we definitely need to
Just a
clarify.
guideline?
Yeah,
We need to definitely clarify which is the guideline, which is the bylaw.
Yes, so when I do my review letter, I'm particularly looking at standards first.
Yeah,
So those, if they're not complying with the standard, you'll see, I'll say, please modify the plan to conform with this specific section or submit a written waiver request.
okay.
And, but when it comes to the guidelines, I think it should be a conversation. I mean, ideally, it's a matter of, okay, well, I think it'd be a good idea for you to put this walkway here, and then they say, yeah, I think that's a great idea, I'm gonna make that modification, or they may say, kind of like the conversation with Dave Cooley about the hardy plank. You were suggesting that he do the hardy plank, and then he gave you a reason why you couldn't do the hardy plank, and okay, you know, it's a conversation, it's not a, you must
Which was
do hardy
cost,
plank.
which was kind of funny, because they have the same cost.
If they haven't seen that.
But I think it's all about your perspective, so the conversation is, well, you know, I want your project to look as good as it can look. He wants the project to look as good as it can look. So let's figure out how we can make that happen in a friendly, collaborative manner instead of a, you will do this.
Yeah, but
Especially if it's a guideline and it's not a standard.
Yeah,
but
I
we-
think the design review thing, a lot of people are taking minor suggestions too seriously, I mean, so.
Well, I don't know that I say that way. I think what is happening is that, what my viewpoint of again, doing the design is different than what your viewpoint is. And that's understandable because we don't really have it formed. We don't have enough there to say, well, this is what I've always thought it to be. It's like, how does vanilla taste? Well, I don't know, let's try different vanillas. So it's kind of that same problem of, in the past, those questions weren't posed. Then as time changes and people get into different positions, different attitudes come in. And instead of it's a collaborative, we're all working here to make it as good for you, you know, as it is for the town. And I think for us, we don't get anything out of it. But if I want your restaurant to do well, your food's gotta be good. Number one, if your food's not good, nobody's going. I don't care how much signage, I don't care how many balloons you put out there, I don't care, free hamburgers, if they don't taste good, you're not gonna go after the first time.
Right.
So that's kind of what my vision is that, you know, we're gonna help you. This is what we're trying to do for you is not gonna hurt you. We're gonna help you because we look at stuff all the time, you know, and certainly my design skills and my experience in owning businesses, I know how it all plays together. We're only trying to help that move forward.
But I think it's
So-
also important to recognize that sometimes there may be recommendations that do hurt. Like particularly with the ice cream, when you have an existing structure with a flat roof and then you say you want them to pitch it. That hurt, because that's a big, big expense. So I think it's important to articulate what is kind of a preference and versus what they have to do. And I don't think it's always clear.
Yeah, and that's what we have to put together, something that there is less controversy over clarity.
Yeah.
And I think that down the road, especially because so much stuff is, as you say, nothing matches. Maybe that's the side. Now, if you want to go quick.
Well, I say,
Okay.
it's a definition of what the town's supposed to look like, and that's kind of beyond this group, somebody, you know, maybe we'll have the planning board define what the town's look is, because they gave me that question when they interviewed me, it's like, how am I supposed to, you know, it's eclectic.
Yes, and it is hard, and you know, yes, there's 16,000 people approximately, yes, you'll get 16,000 different answers, so.
Mhm.
It's
I
hard.
always go back to the 2003 community guideline or the community development. I think it's really good. It laid out even complete streets back then, but we just never did it. It's like if we had followed this, but actually we're having more changes. Like you say, planning takes time. We're having turnover now that we didn't have then. So now is the time to really try to make it look
But
nicer.
if you find a good definition of that, you know, maybe we include it in here as a preface or something.
Right, well, they usually do manuals, they do have a definition page too. Not of everything, but certain questionable things, so like that, I love that square foot versus the gross square. You know, footprint.
One of the things I learned when I went to commissioner of schools and college is that the definitions, there's a reason why they're in chapter 2. Because they set the stage for everything else that comes behind.
Right,
You know, and, you know, to this day, I still refer to the definitions in the zoning code. That's a big deal, because if you have to get right down to it, you start with definitions.
Right, right,
You know,
it's so,
Because you have to, it lays the foundation of where you're coming from.
right,
You know, it doesn't matter where you're going, but you have to start from somewhere, and the definitions give you that starting,
right,
Yeah.
right,
you know.
so that's,
Well, say we could take larger, or leave it as larger in these things if we had a definition of larger somewhere else.
well, I think,
But that's just an example.
yeah. All right,
Okay, so are we clear though, where we're going next with this?
I'm gonna do the updates that I noted, and I'm gonna give it to her, right, I'll send it to her, and then she can review it, you know?
yeah, because I think you've got the same, I mean, look at, you've got notes, you got
Oh, yeah,
district,
yeah,
district.
but once she reviews this one, then I make sure that the combined one that I've done
It's the same,
includes all the agreed to changes, and then we can review the other ones, because it is going, I have to count up the number of. It's about 40% of the guidelines are restatements of the bylaws, and. We probably should talk about, once we have them on the table and in front of us, we should go through and see what style we like better, or how many we're even talking, because I think the ones you've added should be added if they were missing. But, and then it's just a style.
Well, it's more like these are the standards, so it's more like a checklist. It's-
So these are the law. So these are the ones that went through town meeting.
Right.
So that language should come first. And then the guidelines are,
yeah, that's. good.
But-
are
Well, if
more-
we're gonna get rid of one of them.
No, we're adding to it.
You get rid of the
Well, then you
guideline.
keep it twice. You get rid of the guideline, which defeats the purpose of the
Yeah, I
guideline,
agree.
which is in layman's terms.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, so.
But then we have, if we get rid of the guideline, we just have to make sure the standard matches in the book. It's still
Yeah,
there.
I don't know that I wanna get, like you said, like the guideline, I think that's what we started with, unfortunately.
But the checklist, you know, if you have the requirement up here and then you have slightly different wording, but it means the same thing here, then I would get rid of the guideline and just say it's mandatory, but it's recommended in all other districts. Like, I wouldn't keep the same language, because then when you're going through the checklist, it's the same.
Well,
You know, you checked it up here and
you
then
think
you
of the
checked it
checklist,
down.
there's two perspectives on that. One is she's gonna go through it and know the bylaws, but a person doing a self-score or preliminary thing about what's required at the end would prefer the simple terms, and you know, so as a self-appraisal and as a final checklist could end up being two different forms.
So you'd want it to be the same, because if you're the applicant and you go through the guideline and say, well, I follow that, but it doesn't meet the standard, then
The standard is the law, they have to do that.
Right, and I'm just saying that a lot of contractors go to trade school to learn to be a
Because the
contractor,
guidelines
and
are-
then they become very successful and own their own company, so they're quite good at what they do, but legalese is, I can't even read legalese very well, so.
Well, chances are it's the architect. Architect and the engineer are the ones that are using this.
Hmm.
Well, I tell you, we didn't have
No,
legal classes in the schools, you know, it's engineering, I mean.
but I think if they have a question, they'll go to Lori. Don't you think, like, Lori's gonna go through the checklist?
we do pre-application meetings,
All
so
the time.
Bob and I sit down very early in the process, and then when they're a little bit further along and they have a concept, we bring the fire chief and the police chief and the conservation agent and the DPW director, and we sit down together, and then they usually file with you guys at that point. So we've already had a couple of
So-
pre-application
So by the
meetings.
time they come to us, they get vetted kind of through, we give them guidelines, okay, we tell them what are the pitfalls, what you have to do, what you're gonna look out for, all the stuff. Lori points them to whatever guidelines there are, okay? The fire chief puts, all the departments put their input in, then it goes to you guys, okay? And all it does, and even though all of this is advisory, capital A, okay? What it's doing is providing a service to the special permit granting authority.
Right,
And you're cutting through all the weeds and the details. So they-
right,
That's what you're doing, okay, so you're actually helping the applicant present the case, okay, by fact that you hashed everything out.
Yeah.
So that when they go to cast a vote or discuss it, they're thinking big picture and not the minutia.
Right,
Hmm.
right, and
This
they need
is-
that.
This is the minutia department.
Right.
Welcome to the weeds.
I just don't understand how a project can get to a point where it's going for final approval before the design review and not conform to the guidelines then.
So this is going to be beneficial for an architect and a civil engineer. So before they design the project, ideally, what they're doing is they're reading the zoning bylaw, and now we'll have this awesome little checklist. And they're looking and they're saying, okay, you know, this is what I have to do. This is what they want me to do. You know, here are some pictures to give me some guidance. And then I'm going to come up with my concept. That's what they bring to Bob and I. That's what they bring to the wider development team. And then they refine it based on the feedback that they get from us. And then they bring it to you. So when it comes to you, it's still, it's a step above concept, but it's not site plan ready. It's still, you know, in between. So then while they're before you, they're revising. So then by the time they go to site plan, a lot of questions have been answered. You know, they've pretty much finalized their draft, and then they go to planning board. So the benefit of this process is by the time they go to planning board, 90% of what you want should have already been addressed. So that your comment letter should have very few bullets on it. And it's only the things that you can't agree on. So it's the things that you want that the developer doesn't want to do. And that's what goes to planning board. And then it's the same thing with planning board. So, you know, ideally, they're not before, I mean, I like to have it that there's very little outstanding. They should be pretty compliant. You know, when I did my review of the fire station, well, we've already had a couple of rounds of plans, so there were very few items on it that were outstanding. So it makes the process much shorter, ideally, before planning board and ZBA.
Well, I agree with that. My thought as you were speaking is that these are the standards that they expected to do.
Yeah.
That you give them at the time you have that meeting, of course. Then they come to design review, which should have the guidelines, because we have guidelines for multifamily or guidelines. Then our guidelines should be a little bit different, more with what Mark is doing, in that we're creating guidelines here that are going to be a little different because it's redundant if what we're saying is what you said. Correct?
So during those pre-applications, so usually I get a phone call. And, you know, Bob and I meet with these people first. And then I say, this is what you want to pay attention to. These are the sections of the zoning bylaw you need to pay close attention to. Here are the design guidelines. So that is happening like the first conversation. And then, so they should have already designed it, keeping in mind the design guidelines and the design standards.
Okay, but when you're speaking of it and you're saying that these are required, which are in there, right?
Yeah.
So these are already required. So the standards then begin to be seen twice, where the design review guidelines are not. Because if we take that, that's what I'm saying, if we take it away, right, all the work that we're looking at, then it changes the whole idea of what the guidelines are that you give them.
Well,
So
Lori tends to give, actually she does, whenever somebody comes to us, she points them in the direction or gives them the design
Yeah.
guidelines, whatever is in print at the time, and the downtown revitalization reports, and what the duplexes, I mean, all those documents, okay? Depending upon what these people wanna do,
Hmm,
Lori makes sure that they have that information, in addition to the fact that this is here.
right,
Okay, one of the things I'd like to just advise, if you're gonna incorporate stuff out of here onto this checklist, okay? Put a big disclaimer across the top. This is not the zoning code, okay?
yeah,
There are items in here that may or may not be in here that need to be adhered to. This is not the complete set of
Yeah, I
rules. they have to
think that
follow.
is in the guidelines too, so
Okay.
it should also be here.
Big
yeah,
disclaimer
okay.
across the top.
all right. So, and I like that, absolutely.
I mean, in the building code, I have it's a application checklist. Okay, it's not scored, it's just a checklist. And there's one for residential, there's one for commercial, one for residential is 5 pages, single space, one for commercial, 30 pages. Okay, and it talks about line items right through the code, and it gives you the chapter and verse. Okay, and again, at the top of that, it says, this is not a complete list of all the requirements you have to meet. Okay, and we used to use it a lot, but I couldn't damn thing memorize, so I could just write down the list. And it's similar to this, it's a checklist, for myself, but also for the applicant to know, this is what I'm expecting. Okay, so we're both on the same page earlier in the process. Okay, which is where I think this benefit, once these two documents get noted.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It gets them looking in the right direction with the right amount of information. So that hopefully things go smoothly along the process. So
Right.
when they come to you guys, it's not just a crayon on a napkin.
right, and that's the thing
Which
that
you've
we're
seen
told
before.
about, yes,
And I get that on building plans a lot. And I say, here you go, come on, that's some respect.
yeah,
So I think this is a benefit. But you just have to be careful how you set up, because they can say, well, I did all this, I don't have to do this.
right, no, you're absolutely right.
Just be careful.
and that's what I'm afraid of with the grades too, like, I got an A, but then the planning board denied it but we might deny it for a different reason, but because we've already gone down this road, and then you go to court and they say, well, design review approved it, but you guys denied it, so.
Do we actually approve anything? I mean,
No, that's why like the letters, once I started on design review, I restated the letter saying we didn't approve it. They used to say design review approves the site plan. Now we write the design review met and has these following recommendations.
Yeah, yeah, so it is a little different than
Yeah.
before, but I do think the guidelines, I think what you're doing is very important, I think Laura put together is important, I think putting them together is important. Because it's theirs, they can then start looking at it, and to Bob's point. We've been told, as long as I've been here, well, the first couple, it's just kind of an overview, and then it isn't really. It comes in and it's pretty much, it never changes. A little something here maybe, but that's what you get. It's not this napkin idea anymore. So,
And this will come to us and we'll see that these have already been checked off, so then we only have to review.
well, yeah, and I have no problem, I mean, actually, I prefer that,
Yeah.
because I don't want to have to memorize the bylaws.
right, well, that's it. It's for the people who come in
But
next.
it would also be nice to have layman's term on each bylaw, so like they have in the guidelines now.
Yeah,
And, on an Excel spreadsheet, you put a filter on there and just, say bylaws or guidelines.
yeah,
So I don't know, we can think about it, talk about it more.
okay.
I just, ultimately, projects that,
You have to read these and see if you need them in layman terms, because once you read them, they'll probably.
oh, right, and
They're
I
all
say a
pretty
lot of
basic.
them are verbatim. then,
Yeah.
And those are, there's only, when you start to say, 5 feet, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, until we actually know the number we're dealing with, it's probably not even worth having, too much time.
Okay, and I do think, I like the idea of having the bylaw numbers referred to. When you're doing something like that, because again, the person who's coming in to maybe sit in these seats. Isn't Amy and Bob and maybe Laura know the zoning bylaws. I have to look them up. I have to be specific, show me the number, I look it up and I read it. But that's all I wanna do, I don't wanna know them now.
Yeah.
And if this is online after too, like
Yeah.
the person, the applicant can click on the link and it will take.
Right.
Right, exactly,
Yeah.
that's why, guidelines with a click to the link was, I thought, the direction we wanted to go in. I didn't think we just wanted a restatement of bylaws
Yeah,
and a list.
yeah.
Yeah,
This is a
no, I
checklist.
think it's helpful to have that.
Who's gonna do
It's not
that?
easy to do it.
Right.
I did a lot of them, and fortunately, a lot were in the old guidelines that I kind of pasted.
Yeah.
But if Laurie wants to go through them.
Do it too, but it just like right before town meeting, it's gonna be hard.
Yeah, I have your sympathy, or you have my sympathy, I guess. It's
When is town meeting?
22nd.
A week from
I'll have
Monday,
to put that on my schedule.
right? Put in for 3 days.
Bring your magnifying glasses, because the print on that thing
Is
is
it?
teeny, ridiculous.
I also have to move into grant writing, so the big grants are due. the
Do
first
you,
week of
do you
June.
want, cause I can search for the text and find it and then add those for those.
That would be fabulous if you could do that. Some of them I wrote in the text, but most of them I did not.
Yes, I noticed that, so, it's helpful comparing two, because I got it on the old one. You can just see which ones are match up.
One of the things you're gonna have to keep reminded of is that this is a living document. And that every year.
Hmm, that's right.
All of these zoning code
Yeah.
requirements has to be reviewed for accuracy.
Right.
Yes, I did not include any of the warrant articles
Right.
because they haven't been approved yet.
Right.
Yeah, it's probably overwhelming people, so, but yeah.
Okay.
So, but the numbers, if things change, it's the number, letter, that sequence change, like,
If
you
things are
can caution
added.
me not to use page number, because that changes. Like in engineering, if.
Oh,
if-
yeah,
if-
page
if
number
a
and the memo
bylaw
book
gets-
changes.
Or a rule gets deleted, we go to the next number and leave that as a vacant number, so that it doesn't screw that up.
I don't know if we.
Sometimes we do that and sometimes we don't. It's stated in
There's so many
the
years.
article. Like, for example, for the sign bylaw, of course, we struck that from the article, but right now, the definitions are numbered, and my proposal was to eliminate all the numbers. Because it became too arduous when you added a new definition. Then you had to renumber all of the numbers, all of the definitions after that,
Alphabetical.
so.
Okay,
I
and the town doesn't
eliminated
have any
that.
document control system, like a Windchill or anything like that?
So our zoning bylaw is, we
Oh,
use. what is
something
it,
360?
E-code?
Yeah, some E360, something like that.
Yeah, we have a vendor who does our zoning bylaw.
But the booklet?
Yeah, so they,
And
they
online.
make sure that it's consistent throughout and that the spacing is right and all that good stuff.
Okay, so is everybody okay that we just moved to minutes really quickly, because we did have a long list of minutes?
Okay.
And you
And,
have a free? We're done with.
Yeah,
Mark-
we
Mark
work,
was that?
yeah, because I think doing the scoring system, if we don't want to use that format, we just change the term. That's fine.
Yeah, I don't know,
Could be
but,
personal, I mean, it could be up to the.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, I like going back to it so much.
okay, I don't mind, do you guys, what do you think, like,
I think.
Oh, we're not there yet.
yeah, well, all right, we'll talk about it later, it's 11 o'clock. So, we'll go through the meeting minutes, did everybody have a chance to read January 11th meeting minutes? Lisa and I both had changes.
I didn't, but I'm not on it.
You weren't-
Okay.
Yeah, you weren't there.
I've been as far back as they welcomed me, so.
Yeah, I think everything was okay. We did.
Yep,
Okay, so that's 11.
okay, now it's so weird, because we're in person now, like, do I have to take a vote that we approve it still?
You still have to vote, but you don't have to do, it's
Roll
just
call.
raised hand.
Okay. All right.
That's what we're talking about right now.
Okay, so
January 11th.
making sure.
Okay. I think yours are in red, Lisa, and mine were blue.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any other concerns? It's just you and I, Lisa? With these minutes?
Nope.
Okay, so do I have a vote? Do I still have to make a motion? to vote?
Yeah,
I move,
motion
I
second,
move,
and then
I think I'm getting into it. I move to, what?
Approve.
Accept, approve.
Yeah.
Aha, I move to approve the January 11th, 2024 design review committee minutes as amended.
Second. and then we both raise our hand. We don't have to do. roll
Lisa
call.
Maselli, aye.
And I'm an aye, yeah.
Amy Fresky, aye. That way they know it when they're doing.
Oh, is that what they had you do at the selectmen meeting? You had
yeah.
to say your name?
Yeah, so that way you know what's going on.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
So this is
so.
all going back
Yeah.
to pre-COVID. I forget what we used to do.
Because okay, so that's that one.
Okay, so next one is the February 8th.
Uh-oh, how come I have so many? I feel like a school teacher. Maybe I picked up.
I had already read them, this is nothing, but I had already read them last night, so I was good with them.
That's another January, February 8th, sir?
February 8th.
Okay.
Did anyone, Mark, were you here? And Lisa, do you have any?
Yes, you were, members present, your name's right there.
Well, what is this then?
That's something else.
You just handed
I
it.
know, just put it back.
Well, where's the,
Okay, so some more of these. There's a February 8th, the 29th,
Yep,
the 7th.
7th I haven't read yet, so. I'll do that.
All right, there you go, that's the 7th.
okay.
Okay, so we're on February 8th. I made some changes, Michelle sent them out. Did everybody have a chance to
Thinking
read
that's what
them?
that is.
I haven't changed this. I was
Okay.
very impressed with them actually.
There you go, good job, Michelle. Okay, I move, we'll do it quickly, because I have to wait again. I move to approve the February 8th, 2024 Design Review Committee minutes as presented.
Well, they're amended.
All right, one, the one, okay, fine, as amended. Do I
And
hear
now,
a
Mark,
second?
you can
Do I
second.
hear a
Alright, I'll
second?
second that.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor? Amy Pertzky, aye.
Lisa Maselli, aye.
Mark Griffin, the aye.
There you go. There you go. You can have it. And I'll have it.
All
Next
right,
one is
February
February
29th.
29th. Oh, gosh.
It made some changes, I'm sure. Maybe, maybe not.
There's only the one, so, yellow. Oh, look at that.
I did read them though.
If you read them in each,
And I
okay,
had
with
to
them.
change.
Okay.
I'm like today.
I wanted to talk to you quick after this meeting, if you have time.
I need to talk to you long, a lot of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah,
I will make time for you, Bob.
I don't, I have a lot of information in my head right now.
I thought maybe, I think it was
Yeah, I do that.
January 25th.
Okay, well, good.
Really.
Yeah, let's do this first.
All right, so,
I really know from.
I move to approve the February 29th, 2024 Design Review Committee meeting minutes as amended.
A second,
Thank you.
All in favor, Amy Pertzky, aye.
Lisa Maselli, aye.
Mark Griffin, the aye.
Okay, next set of minutes, March 20th. I typed them up quickly when I got home that day, because that was the day we did the walking tour.
That's on.
So I figured we'd forget.
I really appreciated that because I wasn't sure where to go.
It was a tricky day, because we left and came back.
Yeah.
You got it?
Yeah.
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 All right, it looks like somebody that, oh, draft, look at that. Drafting. Okay.
Thank you.
Let's go on.
Still, yeah.
Do we want to remove any reference to?
He didn't make me look at it.
Where, no,
You
because we,
notice I'm
no,
sitting
because
over
we're
here
minutes,
for
so
a
we're
reason.
we're talking.
That's what we're talking
I wanted
about.
the Tom Selleck
At the
trip.
time. All right, then, I move the March 2024 Design Review Committee meeting minutes, to be accepted as prepared, right? Is that the right word?
Yes,
That'll work.
That'll work. Okay, second,
I'll second.
All right, all in favor, Amy Pertzky, aye.
Lisa Maselli, aye.
Margaret, aye.
All right, in 3 minutes, we're gonna bump to the next one. And then Lisa had sent out
That's on a
something.
separate email, right?
And Lisa, you
I
had,
had a change that I sent late. I think if you look on your email,
Okay,
let me just,
for March 7th?
February. Was it February?
I don't know, you
No,
had.
hold on, I gotta find it, I tell you, see, that's why I like things in paper. It's just.
You.
Where are you?
Yeah, because
While you look for that, the reason I had the fire station on the meeting is we're going to planning board next week. Are they planning on coming to planning board more than once, or does it matter that design review usually has their letter done and they're finished before it goes to planning board?
Yeah, you know, I've of course been wondering. I figured to be safe, I will prepare a decision for Tuesday night, but it's up to the planning board whether they want to render a decision or not.
And that's what stinks, it's like, because they're municipal and they wanna stay on schedule. And they weren't ready to come back for us. They're just doing a planning board, but then if we approve it, there's no point in us. Because it's already passed our,
Well, we don't have any outstanding things, do we? So,
I think it was at Street View, but we usually write a memo. And I mean, the tricky thing is they pretty much. The fire station committee approved things before it came to us, which really didn't give us much flexibility to really review it. So, I mean, I could just bring that up Tuesday night, like, if the planning board wants to just. Because even like with the wall, like, they voted on it the night before, then they came to us, so we didn't even talk about the
Ian
wall.
said they were voting on it because they're coming to us.
Yeah, they did actually say that in their meeting.
You know, I think the way it was set up is that the building committee were the ones, they're the client.
Mhm.
So in a typical scenario, the applicant is working with the design team and they're telling the design team what they want. And then the design team is coming to design review committee and the planning board for site plan review. So they are the applicant, so they are expressing what they want, but that doesn't necessarily mean what they're gonna get. So my perspective, like, I was expecting you guys to still comment on the wall. They're looking at different things than you guys are. They're putting cost into the equation, they're the applicant. So this is what they're saying, their top choice is this particular type of wall. But that doesn't take away your ability to discuss and make your recommendation on your favorite type of wall. So I think maybe it's because it's the town, there was the feeling that they were taking the power away from the design review committee, but I didn't interpret it that way.
Okay.
They're expressing the applicant's desire and just the same as, you know, the Dave Cooley as the owner of the property for 129. He was expressing to his design team what his desire was. But he's still coming to design review and they're still going to planning board or ZBA for approval, so.
Well, they went through ZBA, I thought, though, didn't they get,
Yeah,
where they needed
they
through
did.
ZBA, so
They
now
did.
they go back to planning board or no?
No, they're in litigation right now, 129, but the planning.
No,
Oh, the
fire
fire
station.
station.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there were only certain things that the ZBA had jurisdiction over, so the ZBA voted. And now they're done with ZBA.
Okay, but then.
So now they go to planning board, so it's the next step.
I guess what was tricky, and it probably hurt more to watch their meeting the night before our meetings, because the discussions that took place was somebody on the board would say, do you wanna go to design review? And they're like, no, we're voting tonight, this is the wall we're gonna go with, like, so then you come to design review the next day and it's like, well, they've already pretty much said, this is the one pick, this is the one we're going forward with.
Yeah, I just felt they were irrelevant at that point.
Yeah.
But in their defense, though, they do have 2 former design review members on their team, so. You know, it was covered kind of in their
Well,
opinion.
we don't know. Did they talk about it in their opinion?
Probably.
Because.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch all of it, but I mean, they're competent people, so, and they're architects.
Well, the other thing is they said at the field meeting out there, and the architect said this, and we had the same issue with Grafton when we put the fire station. Was that, you know, you pick out a product and that may not be the product you wind up with.
Right.
So, you know, whether it goes to the fire station building committee or the design review committee, it's possibly irrelevant to both committees.
Right, well, and to that point, I've gone to a couple of different building shows now, and the zinc is a product that nobody wants to use because it runs. So I said, I want documentation to that effect. I talked to 2 different people in the trade show, and they're like, oh my God, you don't want to do zinc. And I don't want it to be anecdotal, I want it to be important, because if in fact 2 years from now, you've got a nail in there and the nail material conflicts with the zinc and it runs, it's not, and nobody's gonna expect that from different, I mean, if you're not in the building world, you don't know that. And how are you
So
gonna
the
know
dye
that?
and the
So,
zinc runs.
yeah, so what happens
So-
is it's a chemical reaction. An architect isn't gonna necessarily know that. An architect is going to look at the design and what we can do and all these different things, but some things that are brand new in the field, they don't know. And even the new materials, like I talked about, where the new AZACs and the plastics and everything else, they're making things now to last 25 years, 30 years, 40 years lifetime, just like they did with Rhino Shield for paint. So because of these new materials coming in, when I was going through my little architect classes and things like that, you didn't talk about those things, it's just how it looked. You know, this looks nice here, this is a nice fabric there, the material looks good here. You never delved into what they did together. So, and unfortunately, now you're looking at a building that's supposed to last 50 years, you've got to take the responsibility of what it will look like in year 10, year 20, year 30, year 40, which is why the classic brick and everything, it didn't really change. The brick stayed the brick, the mortar stayed the mortar. It wasn't until you added things to it that in today's world, because there's so many different chemical reactions, like laying zinc over copper is going to cause a metal reaction. I'm not a chemist, but I've learned that there's certain things, even with paints, you lay one color down. You do t-shirts, you want your color to stand out, you put white first, you get a dark t-shirt, then you put color on top of the white, but that doesn't necessarily translate into who's doing the design work. Because I'm looking at the design and how lovely it looks today. I don't really care what it looks like 50 years from now, because that's not my job. My job is here, making it this way. It's just like a couple of different, Frank Lloyd Wright and Frank Gehry, and there's a third, and Frank Gehry's might have been one of these, where they ended up removing his buildings because the architecture he created was dangerous. And I think it was Chicago. So they have these big apartment buildings, and the entrance is recessed. So there's a section that you can't see anybody at the door. And crime was getting so bad, and people were getting killed, and there was no way to see what was going on. It was well before cameras, that they ended up taking the buildings down. And that architect wouldn't have thought about that.
Those guys are rookies.
Yeah, right. It's like, why did you not think that? And I see that actually on Ridge Road. So the first house that's going up has got a recessed front door. I'm like, because she didn't see that.
Good
Actually,
thing
a
we're
very
not so
popular design in residential.
Right, these days, and yet you'll see what happens down the
That's
road.
High crime district.
Yeah, it could be.
Swamp monster.
But I just wanna know, what do we say on Tuesday? Because, they came in front of us, we never wrote the letter. So how am I gonna
Well,
state this as the representative of the planning
If
board?
we had talked about the wall in our meeting, they voted on it before, but when we were talking about terracing the wall, we were also talking about removing the parking spaces in the back. And
Oh,
so
yeah,
they went
did they do
together,
that?
but they terraced the wall and added parking spaces, which, naturally pushes it way back. So, it's dead now, in my opinion, it's whatever,
Right, should I just say the design review doesn't have any recommendations because we didn't finish? Well, I know that part's dead, but we didn't
Yeah.
really, I mean, there's no point if the planning board goes forward with it to have them come back to us again, like,
Yeah, that's true.
No,
Since
I
it-
mean, yeah, if the planning board renders the decision, then this
Yeah,
is,
so
they're all gonna look to me though and say, okay, we did design review, say, well, we didn't really finish the review.
Yeah.
But I don't wanna bump the fire station
Well, it's
again,
Say that
because they have to
had
come
two-
back to us, and then they'll have to go back to the planning board again.
And so
and-
you can just say because they had two former groups on there, just-
They, because
I
there
don't
were
wanna
two,
give, I don't wanna give them that credit.
You can always say,
Well, no.
you know, you've discussed it, but you form no conclusion, you know, and, you know, I would say leave it to the planning board. You know, because if it's at one point that you're worried about, leave it up to the planning board, let them make the decision whether to do an announcement or a decision item make.
I mean,
I
I do,
kinda like that.
That's their call.
I mean, we can make notes if we want to do something, because the guest parking lot does kind of bother me a little bit, because there's no reason that couldn't have been 3 feet.
All right,
I'll just say that they've moved forward, but we haven't finished, so, I mean, because I don't wanna speak for all of us if we don't have time to go into it.
but can
What I
I,
would write in the review letter,
I like what Bob said though, in terms of,
leave it to the planning board to decide if they, but they're gonna look to me. And they're gonna say, do you wanna continue it, do you think we should continue
Well,
it?
we do have the original, one of these checklists that we had before we started making changes, I had done just a run through of it with the fire station, and they came out very well, but then we made, or I made notes on the cover, you know, saying, I can just send those to you and you can see if they're still relevant and you wanna include them.
But I think we have to do it together.
yeah.
Like,
I mean, I had gone through the checklist, but that I did in my file.
Yeah.
And that was the basis of the outstanding comments that I had. But that's just me, that's
Right.
my letter,
Right,
that's not
right, so unless we
your-
all do that,
Yeah.
sit back and merge one, and we don't really.
in your
have time for
meeting,
that.
Lynn? No?
Tuesday,
I mean, what you could do is, so this has the design
You can
guidelines
assume.
and the standards.
Yeah,
I mean, you could just quickly go through it now if you want to.
we go through it now, or we can do through it like, and meet Monday morning.
Kill
or
me
Well,
now,
something.
kill me
was-
later.
I know going through the guidelines, they came out very well, it was the comments that I had.
Monday's a holiday.
Okay,
Oh,
Yeah. we can
yeah,
meet.
could meet tomorrow morning if everybody has to come tonight, which I don't even think I do.
Probably we can't, so it's not enough time to meet in 48 hours.
That's right, yeah.
I know, cause there were certain things I did wanna write in the review letter, but I don't
Well-
have that notebook.
Why don't we go, why don't we, what is it, what did we do the last time? We went on recess? We came back after we walked around,
We could meet Tuesday morning, right before the planning board, and write a quick memo.
It's still not
I do,
48 hours.
as like the chair,
Because
do
of
you
the
have,
holiday.
Oh, wow.
So
do you,
it's
can you just merge our comments onto one document?
not with
I
us
mean-
here.
how much you
Well,
want
if-
to eat at noon. Be the closest you can eat, it's like
Do you wanna
11,
meet at noon?
16 or.
On Tuesday, just have like an hour,
Okay.
maybe,
Tuesday, what's the date?
I don't know.
Tuesday's the 16th.
16.
17th. Ooh, 17th, I got something going on.
Your taxes are due, taxes are due the 17th, this is the 16th,
So I know my wife will be busy.
so. I have no events on Tuesday.
Oh, okay, all right. I guess-
Can everybody meet Tuesday at noon and try to like punch out a memo, or should we
Yeah,
just say we
yeah,
have
Well,
no?
do
no,
we
we'll do it.
wanna go through our sheets and bring them and, you know, cause I already have mine done, so I'm
Oh,
volunteering.
look at you.
Yeah, I think
Alright.
we have to do it together, I'm not ready to do it right now, it's like
Yeah.
11:30.
Yeah, me too.
I have other things that I'm supposed to do.
I have a little complication that I'm on I'm on a engineering roundtable.
At noon,
No, it's just that I had to take an oath on that where I have to, when I see safety concerns, I have to document them. And
Ah.
I get out of that on this, cause hopefully it never comes up.
Oh,
We'll
I know,
have to talk
you're on
about that
screen
Tuesday,
now,
so-
so-
Nobody wants-
Tuesday's
it's
just
cheap.
the review.
yeah, I think we'll just try to review and do a memo.
Okay, that's a good idea. And I have I found what I want, that I did send you, but I sent it from here. So I don't know if it's in those on there, cause I'm not connected to
Do you
your
wanna bring it
internet.
up on Tuesday?
But I can read it,
Oh,
and I did send it, it should have come through, but I couldn't find it. So for the amendment on the January 25th.
When did you send that?
Today, this morning when I got here, because
But you sent it to
I don't-
I
Michelle.
sent it to Michelle, I didn't send it, I just
Okay,
did
because I don't
Michelle.
have it.
No,
Yeah.
and I resend it once I get back to my computer.
So do you wanna read it
But
now?
I'm
or
just
do-
gonna read it now,
Okay.
so that you'll you'll know what I'm doing.
Because those are our postings, right? January 20th.
Yeah, can you
24th.
make an amendment though to? We did it once with the planning board, but not when you were here. Like Lisa, you can explain it.
All right, what I did was I watched the last planning board meeting. And there
On
was
the 20.
oh, just the last one, whatever the date was. And,
16.
okay, and there was,
Don't be giving me a hard time.
yeah, there was one who gave me a hard time. And I went back and watched the video and I watched exactly I listened to exactly what was said and then I transcribed it from the transcription. And basically at the 39.22 mark, Dave Barron says, quote, "Let's see, your roof deck up on top. Again, depending on how the wall goes and where we set up some sort of shading up top there for you guys, otherwise, no one will ever use it. I've seen it in project after project at different restaurant and rooftop restaurants where they've been designing with no shade. Some shading goes up top would be great, whether it's done with shading that comes off the building, which is my favorite, or separate shading with tables and whatever. Not my favorite because it could go away in a windstorm, but something. I'll let you guys investigate that, period." And that's what he said. So there was no discussion on what should be put there.
So he said an awning or umbrellas, basically.
Yeah,
Well, he said his preference was something that comes off of the rooftop.
Right,
so
which would be an awning. in my
which was an
opinion.
awning in his opinion too. But it wasn't, I
Well,
mean,
pergola doesn't come off a building, it comes up from the ground.
It's a permanent structure though, and
Yeah.
then he said that the umbrellas were not his preference, so.
yeah, because they could blow away, but
But that was just their interpretation.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as our guidelines go and our checklist goes, there's nothing about shade.
right, and
So it
so
should be
he
taken in that context as his opinion.
put on the line being told, that's gotta be in there to say it. That wasn't
mean,
said.
In fact, any personal opinion like that, if we want that to be official, we should put it to a vote to see if we agree on it.
Yeah.
So you just wanna add that to the minutes?
I want to add that to the minutes because that's specifically what was said. And so in the future, if they go back and reference anything, that's what was said. I mean, personally, putting in a pergola anywhere, it's not shade unless you're gonna grow grapes.
How about putting it, since those minutes are already accepted and posted, how about just today's minutes would
Okay.
reflect that?
All right,
Instead of
that-
modifying
Yeah.
the.
Then it'll still be something that comes up.
that's right, because it happened today.
Okay,
Alright.
but I do have a question too, like, just for the design review, like now, Bill, I feel like we've always been collaborative with the design review. And we do make suggestions sometimes, like, cause Dave in his expertise says, I wouldn't put the dumpster there, cause when you're plowing, just different expert opinions, but they're not necessarily on the checklist. But then Bill was saying at the planning board meeting, well, why are you guys making suggestions that they're not in the good guidelines? I guess,
I think maybe, just being an observer, somebody who attends and correct me if you don't agree with me. I think sometimes the suggestions come across as, I want you to do this.
Right.
And maybe softening the verbiage. So when you're making a suggestion that's clearly a suggestion, say, I have a suggestion for you. This isn't a requirement, but I think that changing the design of the windows would be helpful or
Well,
whatever.
this is where, I have a sheet, I started the rubric on top. You said that wrong, but underneath, when it was an executive summary on top, I had concerns.
Just safety
And it was just a
concerns.
place for us to list, safety concerns that beyond the scope of our things, just comments that we had. I mean, to cover us, saying we said something about it. And then this also includes the bonus sections, like the awnings and stuff like that, where if they did score poorly, there is a way to, improve the score, so we can look at including this back into the summary page.
so suggestions, concerns is just a little thing at the bottom.
Yeah, like with that, I'm gonna bring up the ice cream. I can't remember who said it, but it came across very forcefully that he had to change the roof. So it's a flat roof and it had to be a pitched roof. And there's nothing in our regulations because it's an existing flat roof building, so it would have been grandfathered under the standards and the guidelines. So there's nothing in the regulations that said that he had to make it a pitched roof. But it came across very forcefully that he had to make it a pitched roof. So that is an example, I think, of what Bill is talking about.
Okay. Did they give the
Well,
option of a,
Do you
false
remember if
facade
told you
to make it look
No.
like a pitched roof?
Well, no,
or-
you know.
I mean, I
that was
wasn't
dark
involved
or
in that,
something.
so.
Yeah,
Because
I mean,
it
he
was
was
a compromise.
changing the facade. I
But he
don't really
said
remember
no
what
one
the
else
roof
said.
line was like,
Yeah.
but he was, he has a cinder block building. And he was going to change the facade, so it looked quite different than it currently looks. But I think that's what Bill was
Well,
talking
any
about.
false, even a false facade of a pitched roof isn't gonna fit in with the fifties diner, one of the projection roofs. But
Right,
Yeah,
But I felt like Bill brought up the pergola, and like when Lisa just read that about the pergola, like I felt the way Dave said it was like, I've,
it was just a
it
personal
was just a
opinion.
personal
There
opinion.
wasn't
it
anything
was a
telling,
suggestion.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was terribly suggestion.
And but I
These are
felt the
what
way
you
he
guys
did
want.
it too was like really laid back, it
Well,
wasn't
I
like,
think they wanted a pergola, and this gave them justification to spend the extra money on it.
I don't know, but
And
I
it
just
goes to
felt
that
like
guy, so.
at the planning board it's hard, cause he's like, well, you guys told him to do that, and then you
Yeah.
changed that, and I'm like, well, we didn't ask for that, and. But he was kind of saying, well, then,
Well, he was just repeating what he heard too, I think, so
Yeah.
things got skewed a little bit each time the story was told.
I just don't want
The
things
mulch
skewed
was
even
the
at
other
town
example.
meeting, because people say things and it becomes a fact, and it's like, well, that wasn't a fact.
Yeah, that's true, because I remember being at appropriations, and the chief said at appropriations that night. Well, design review asked us to put the pergola on, and we did it.
And now they're
Well,
saying.
now it's in
there.
their minutes, and it's the chief talking.
Yeah.
And if I wasn't the liaison, I wouldn't have been there to hear it. But also being on the design review, I'm like, what?
Yeah,
Because I mean,
well, that got held against you too, though, because Bill took that as first, you said you wanted the pergola, and now you're saying you don't want it. It's like,
yeah, and
No,
we never
it's-
said we wanted it.
Right, and we never said we didn't want it, we just said we didn't suggest it.
Right, right.
I don't know, it's just too
Yeah, and
bad
that's
that
just-
it's where it's at.
Yeah, and I think it bears saying because it was he was so adamant about it. And that's where we all work as a team. And it takes somebody and try to throw them under the bus when it wasn't actually.
Well, I say, in Bill's defense, it's clear that he had talked to other people to hear their complaints about this, to try to help us. And brought them to Amy's attention. And they're defendable, so it's probably better that he does, it would have been better.
He could have
outside
done
of the
it, he
meeting.
could have done it,
Yeah.
unless.
Yeah, he should have talked to Amy maybe before the meeting or,
Or ask the question, did it happen first?
So.
All right, so I wanted to clear that, so that's gonna be into today's minutes, I'll redo it, and I think it's important, I think, we all have to start looking at, the long-term effect of when something like that gets said, because the next person, the next person, the next person.
Yeah, I hear ya.
Okay,
All right.
are we ready to,
Do we have to take a vote to adjourn?
I think so.
no.
Oh, we
I
can't just
think
walk
our
out
meeting
one per
goes
person.
11:30, town is obligated to buy lunch.
Show me that regularly.
I can write it down.
Show me that.
Make that one up.
I think it's just a Christmas party.
Is that what it is?
So, okay, who's gonna,
Oh,
it's gonna move,
One
I move to
question.
adjourn?
this one is in red on yours, it was in red on
Yeah.
mine. I don't know why it was in red on any of them.
I left it red because it was red on yours, so.
Okay. I'm changing that. Because
Okay.
So
And for
Want to say
anybody
goodbye?
watching, I just want us to all get along, like, I don't know if it's ever happened in the history of any town, but I wish all the boards and could get along and not point fingers.
can't we all just get along? That's-
Right, that is a quote, so hopefully
everybody get on
we
the.
can work in that direction.
All right, I move to adjourn the meeting at, do I put the time in like when somebody dies?
11:29.
11:49,
29.
yes. You gotta do it, got
I
a
don't have
second,
11:28.
you got a second,
I second,
All right,
but at 11:28.
at 11:28, all right,
Amy Kurtzky, aye.
Lisa Maselli, aye,
Margaret, gonna be aye.
that's it, good night, and we go and get free lunch.